Chapter 2678. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations falling into the devil's claws at this point. The mother mosquito actually shook its head and sighed emotionally. Then, it muttered to itself again. On the other hand, whether it's this mysterious spiritual mark or the spiritual restriction left behind by the great demon commander, they are all the purest spiritual origins after being melted away. This is what this humble one desires the most. With this purest spirit source, this humble one can finally break through in one fell swoop. Little guy, thank you. Speaking of this, the black mosquito smiled and looked at Xianxia from afar. Below, the wretched mosquito slayer, who suddenly saw the black mosquito wake up, was stunned. Not only was it not angry, but it was also so happy. Hearing the black mosquito magical beast's proud words, the wretched mosquito slayer was even more astonished. It was unknown whether he was frightened by the danger revealed in these words, or shocked by the fact that the black mosquito magical beast had finally broken free from the enslavement of the mental restriction and advanced to the late stage of the black hole realm. In short, it was completely dumbfounded for a moment. At the same time, Xianxia, who was lurking at the end of the tunnel above, was also completely shocked. At this moment, Xianxia's entire head was rumbling, and his face was full of sluggishness. The words of the black mosquito beast were like steel needles that pierced into his heart, causing him to feel an incomparable throbbing pain. He was unwilling. From the other party's words, Xianxia could clearly tell that if there were no accidents, the level 9 slave seal that had been inserted into the black mosquito's body could have completely subdued and controlled the black mosquito. The spirit restriction left by the great demon commander could make the black mosquito submit at a critical moment when Nibel Mountain activated the mother seal. Also, the black mosquito had just said that the level 9 slave seal that had been inserted into its body was more powerful than the spirit mark left in its brain by the great demon commander. Since that was the case, it was obviously possible to completely enslave the black mosquito through this level 9 slave seal, unlike the spirit restriction left by the great demon commander, which was just a threat. Xianxia's deduction was correct. A level 8 slave seal could deal with black hole state experts, who were in the 8th level of the star state. Even for a late black hole realm expert, a rank 9 slave seal was more than enough. Unfortunately, Xianxia had calculated everything and was extremely cautious. But in the end, he still missed one thing, and that was the mental restriction that the great commander of the demon tribe left in the brain of the black mosquito demon beast. Even though the spiritual restriction wasn't as powerful as Xianxia's level 9 slave seal, it still had the same effect. It was to control the black mosquito beast brain and eventually control it. Two forces with the same goal, but with different masters, appeared in the brain of the black mosquito beast at the same time. Naturally, they began to fight each other at once, wearing each other down. In the end, the black mosquito beast was the one who benefited. After all, regardless of whether it was Xianxia's 9th level slave seal or the mental restriction left behind by the great commander of the demon tribe, they were all condensed from the purest source of spiritual energy. Of course, they were unbreakable when they were complete, but as they wore each other down, they turned into the purest source of spirit energy, which eventually merged with the black mosquito's brain. The black mosquito beast took the opportunity to absorb the energy and break through the bottleneck. Everything was so coincidental that the truth couldn't have been realized if any of the factors had been missing. However, it was too late to say anything now. Just as these thoughts quickly flashed through Xianxia's mind, and he understood everything in a short period of time, the black mosquito mother beast, who was giggling on the soft bed in the mosquito nest below, proudly said its thanks as it raised its head to look in the direction Xianxia was standing. At this moment, Xianxia clearly had the illusion that he and the mosquito beast were looking at each other. His body shook, and he even suspected that there was a problem with his perfect oscillation skill. Perhaps it was because his mind was shaken that caused the perfect oscillation skill to pause for a very short time, which leaked his aura and was detected by the mosquito beast. Otherwise, Why would the black mosquito magical beast suddenly raise its head and look in his direction instead of the other passageways that were densely packed in the nightmare wall? The probability of such a coincidence happening was simply too minuscule. Thinking of this, Xian couldn't help but feel shocked again, and then quickly checked the operation of the perfect oscillation skill. However, he quickly discovered that there was no problem at all. Not a single trace of his aura leaked out. Even when his mind was shaken, the state of the perfect vibration skill did not show any signs of stagnation or even a ripple. Under such circumstances, the mosquito beast shouldn't have discovered him, but it had clearly determined his position. What was the problem? Xian was burning with anxiety, and he didn't move at all, because if he couldn't find the root of the problem, it would be useless no matter how he tried to escape. The mosquito beast could detect him standing here, but if he escaped somewhere else, would the mosquito beast not be able to detect him? He was simply deceiving himself. You're not bad at all. Knowing that I've already discovered you, you can actually resist running away? TSK, TSK, TSK. I'm starting to admire you more and more. Just as Xian's mind was racing as he quickly analyzed the source of the problem, the black mosquito mother beast once again laughed. I have to say, you little guy are really mysterious. Not only are you able to possess a mental imprint that is even stronger than the mental restriction of the great commander of the demon cultivator tribe, which has the effect of enslaving a mental imprint, you even have this kind of terrifying concealment ability that even a black hole realm cultivator can't detect. This servant is becoming more and more interested in you. You didn't run away because you're trying to figure out where the problem is, right? It's useless. Actually, you're not leaking any aura at all, so the problem isn't with you at all. What's the point of thinking about it? Come down, no matter where you run to, as long as you're in this demon nest. I'll be able to detect you immediately. I've nothing to do, so I've already refined this demon nest, so all of a sudden, there's a small piece of land that's about 1 meter in diameter. All of a sudden, there's nothing left. Even the black fog that pervades the entire space can't be detected. Tell me, how can I not detect it? At this point, the mother mosquito beast's smiling face suddenly darkened, and it raised its hand to grab Xian from afar. His voice suddenly turned stern at this moment. Stinking brat, get down here right now. I've never heard of anyone being able to decompose a demon's brain and extract its spiritual origin energy. I really love you to death. Chapter 2679. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations The Only Chance. Upon hearing the mother mosquito beast's words, Xian finally came to a realization, but he smiled bitterly in his heart. Although it was good news that there was no problem with his perfect oscillation, this result was obviously meaningless to Xian. The mother mosquito beast had nothing better to do, so it had refined the entire devil's nest into a magic treasure. Under such circumstances, even if there was no problem with Xian's perfect oscillation, the mother mosquito beast did not need to look for problems with him. It could just sense the abnormality of the magic treasure in the devil's nest and instantly find him. Who could have foreseen this? All of this could only be said to be fate. Perhaps it was fated to be such a disaster. Just as his body was being pulled toward the mosquito nest bed below, it wasn't that Xian hadn't thought of immediately transforming the perfect vibration into an absolute vibration. This way, even if the black mosquito beast trapped him, it would not be so easy to kill Xian. Absolute oscillation represented an absolute defense. Furthermore, it consumed Xian's mental power. As long as Xian had a trace of mental power origin, his absolute oscillation shield would not collapse. Moreover, the mental power source core in his sea of consciousness stored a lot of mental power origin. In addition, the 300 level 3 and level 4 slave seals could be decomposed at any time and turned into pure mental power origin. In that case, he could more or less hold on for a while. However, as soon as this thought flashed through Xian's mind, he immediately gave up. So what if he could hold on for a while? There was no point in it at all. Could he wait for reinforcements to arrive? Or could the mother mosquito beast change its mind? What a joke. At the thought of this, Xian smiled bitterly in his heart. Suddenly, A bold idea slowly emerged from the depths of his mind. After a quick deduction, his heart suddenly pounded. This plan was feasible, and if it succeeded, all of his previous mistakes would be made up for, and everything would return to how it was before. The mother mosquito beast, including the wretched mosquito slayer, would not be able to escape his control in the end. Although the consequences of failure were equally serious, and there was absolutely no chance of survival, Xian had already fallen to this point. What else did he not dare to gamble on? Even if the mother mosquito beast did not want to kill him, what it wanted was the method to decompose Xian's brain core and extract his mental power. How could he possibly give it? That was the power of the devouring system. Not to mention the fact that Xian could not give it up. Even if he could, Xian would not compromise and would rather die. That, because he'd lost the devouring system. With his current weak strength and the fact that he'd already made so many enemies as soon as he arrived, Xian's final result was still to fall on the path of death. Rather than that, he would rather die with dignity. Thinking of this, Xian immediately dispelled the perfect vibration and revealed himself halfway down. At the same time, he kept all of his treasures into the undying world in his body. As for the 300 level 3 and level 4 slave seals, he threw them all to the devouring system and gave the order to fuse them at full speed. The reason why he did this was partly to protect his treasures and partly to save his own life. Xian believed that the enemy would not be able to detect the treasures that he kept in his undying world. Similarly, the enemy would not be able to detect the treasures that he threw to the devouring system. Even though both the devouring system and the undying world were in his body, even a black hole realm expert would not have the ability to do so. Not to mention forcefully retrieving the treasures. Even sensing the existence of the undying world and the devouring system was basically impossible. In other words, the current Xian's body was empty. There was nothing. Under such circumstances, although the enemy knew that something was wrong, as long as Xian did not relent, the enemy would not kill him on the spot no matter how angry he was. In order to obtain the treasures and the method of dissecting the demon's brain to extract mental energy. In this way, Xian would have the opportunity to use the 300 level 3 and level 4 slave seals to fuse a new level 9 slave seal. As long as the second level 9 slave seal was successfully fused, Xian would have the opportunity to turn the tables. What he was fighting for now was this opportunity. This was his only chance of survival. Once he succeeded, all his previous mistakes would not matter anymore. However, if he failed, he would definitely anger the enemy when he attacked again. In order to be safe, the enemy would probably give up on obtaining the treasures and the method of dissecting the demon's brain to extract mental energy from it and kill him in one fell swoop. After all, the spiritual seal left by the great commander of the demon tribe in the demon's brain had been removed. Moreover, the enemy's cultivation had indeed profited from this misfortune and entered the advanced black hole realm. The black mosquito beast was dispensable to Xian's method of dissecting the demon's brain to extract mental energy from it. Obtaining it would at most be the icing on the cake. Even if it did not obtain it, there would not be any serious consequences. It could rush to the 4th level at any time, kill Mount Naibwa, seize the Black Mosquito Bastion, and escape, of course, with the enemy's terrifying strength as an advanced black hole realm expert. It could actually search Xian's soul. Once the soul was searched, all the secrets could not be hidden and the enemy would know everything. However, if it fell into the hands of a human powerhouse, Xian might be worried about this problem. However, if it was a demon or a beast, Xian did not care at all. This was because there was no such thing as a soul search on the demon's side. Demons did not have a primordial spirit, so how could one search their soul? They didn't have this awareness at all. Xian had long since understood this point. After all, he was worried that he might encounter a high-level devil cultivator. Once the other party was able to search his soul, then he wouldn't be able to keep any secrets. In fact, even if Xian fell into the hands of a human powerhouse, he would not have to worry about this problem. This was because he already had a spiritual source core in his knowledge sea that was unique to demons. Demon scouts moved around the meteorite star core. The reason why human powerhouses could not find any clues about them was because their spiritual source core was so strong that it could block the scanning of human powerhouses. Now, Yixian also had the spiritual source core that was unique to demons. Therefore, even if he faced a human black hole realm powerhouse now, he would not have to worry about his soul being searched. This situation should not have existed. How could a mere core realm cultivator boast shamelessly that he was not afraid of a black hole realm powerhouse's for soul searching? If such words were spread, people would laugh their heads off. Chapter 2680. I'll be the big one, and you'll be the small one. This young man is quite handsome. I wonder how good his skills in bed are. When Yixian took the initiative to reveal himself halfway through the fall, the eyes of the female black mosquito that had been looking up suddenly lit up, and a touch of lust burst out. It even expressed its interest in Yixian without hiding. This scene made the wretched mosquito slayer clench his fists at the side. His face was full of hostility and resentment, as if a jar of vinegar had been knocked over. Before Yixian's body landed on the ground, he felt his stomach churn and an incomparably absurd feeling welled up in his heart. If it was in the past, he would never have thought that he would one day be judged by this mother mosquito of lust, who was neither human nor beast. More importantly, there was a fellow beside him, whose face was filled with resentment that he had stolen his favor. What the hell was this? Yixian's figure finally landed on the soft mosquito nest bed that was 10,000 square meters in size. Then the damned female mosquito crawled over on all fours. Its seductive face was full of hunger, and saliva was dripping from the corner of its mouth. It was clearly a super large mosquito, and thick black fog was constantly gushing out of its body. Yixian had previously heard from the wretched mosquito butcher that when the female mosquito was in love, it would emit a black mist of courtship. Now it seemed that after this damned female mosquito saw him, it was actually a little difficult to control its emotions. She wouldn't press him down on the spot, and then without a second word, she would start with OXX, right? As this thought flashed through his mind, Yixian felt a surge of disgust. He was prepared to self-destruct. Instead of being humiliated by a female mosquito, he would rather self-destruct and explode into a pile of mush. Dear, this kid is very clever. You can't be too careless. It's best if you don't go near him. I'll protect you. Seeing the black fog gushing out of the female mosquito's body, and a large amount of it at once, the wretched mosquito slayer's face was full of grief and indignation. He looked like he was very hurt and immediately came forward, showing the look and posture of a loyal protector. You're just a small satellite state cultivator. Do I need you to protect me? Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. Get lost. The female black mosquito's face immediately darkened, and she sternly scolded, You did make me very happy, better than all the others. However, it's not like I didn't give you any benefits. Otherwise, how could you enter the satellite state in just 3 years? You're a demon. Calm. If you think that I have to give up the entire forest because of you, I don't mind killing you with my own hands. After saying this, the mother mosquito turned its head to look at Yixian. The saliva at the corner of its mouth couldn't help but drip down. It swallowed a mouthful of saliva before continuing. At the very least, with this little fresh meat, you damned old man really don't have much value anymore. If you don't know what's good for you, humph. The wretched mosquito slayer was so angry that he almost vomited blood, but he forced himself to hold it in. He glared at Yixian with hatred, as if he wanted to eat him alive. Yixian was already numb to it, so he ignored it. At this moment, the female black mosquito raised its right hand and placed it on Yixian's forehead. This move almost made Yixian self-destruct, but fortunately, he managed to control himself. The female black mosquito's right hand that was placed on his forehead looked no different from a human's right hand. It was obvious that the female black mosquito was evolving into a demon, but even though it had reached the black hole state, its torso was still that of a mosquito. You don't have any treasures? When the female black mosquito's right hand touched his forehead, Yixian immediately felt a wave of mental energy enter his body. It quickly circulated around his body before it was withdrawn. At this moment, the voice of the mother black mosquito beast sounded out once again, and it revealed a sense of relief. I was originally worried that you still had that mysterious spiritual brand in your hands, but now it seems you don't only have one, but you didn't bring it with you at all. Since that's the case, I have nothing to worry about. When he heard this, Yixian's heart skipped a beat, but he was also completely relieved. The female black mosquito was a supreme being in the black hole state, so would never have expected that a mere Starcore state ant would have an ability or secret technique that could block its probing. Therefore, the mother black mosquito beast only probed once before it ended, and it withdrew its mental power. In fact, it would have been useless even if it probed a few more times. Even Yixian's primordial spirit had entered the undying world, so the female black mosquito could only probe a monster core in his sea of consciousness. All right, you watch over him for me. It's best if you can persuade him so that he'll obey me. If you can do that, seeing that you're still useful, I'll let you be the boss and him be the concubine. It's not impossible. After confirming that Yixian no longer had the slave imprint on him, the female black mosquito was obviously completely relieved. It turned to the wretched mosquito slayer and said, "I've just broken through to black hole rank 7, so I need to stabilize my realm. It'll take a few days, so you better put in more effort. Once you're done, I'll wake up and have some fun with you guys, then I'll go kill Mount Naibwa. When that time comes, you could be the captain of this black mosquito ship." With that, the female black mosquito went to the side. The bed of mosquito nests below rolled and quickly swallowed it up. Then it went down to stabilize its realm. After the female black mosquito disappeared, the wretched mosquito slayer's expression was still uncertain. He had been standing at the side thinking about something. However, the resentment toward Yixian on his face was obviously fading away. It was obvious that the female black mosquito's last words had worked. The female black mosquito knew him very well and knew that he would be moved. Otherwise, it would not have left Yixian here. What if he was killed by the wretched mosquito slayer? In fact, even though the female black mosquito knew what was going on, it was still not at ease, so it extended a wisp of mental power to investigate. At the very least, Yixian vaguely sensed it. It was unknown whether the wretched mosquito slayer sensed it, but after hesitating for a while, it finally slowly moved toward Yixian. It touched its nose embarrassedly, then awkwardly said to Yixian, "Ahem, Brother Yi, my dear is actually a good person. It's rare for him to favor you, so why don't you just accept it? Think about it. Previously, you were just a demon pariah in the slums below. If you were to obey my dear, then when I become the captain of the Black Mosquito and give you a position as my deputy, your life would be..." Chapter 2681. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, the second level. 9 Slave Seal Swish. After confirming that the Black Mosquito Queen's mental power had retreated and was no longer paying attention to him, the wretched Mosquito Slayer was right in front of him. He was not wary of Yixian, and the latter took advantage of his unpreparedness to attack. With an almost imperceptible sound of something breaking through the air, a level 4 Slave Seal entered a certain part of the wretched Mosquito Slayer's body and instantly drilled in. "You little..." The wretched Mosquito Slayer was stunned, and then he flew into a rage. He had been so careless because the Black Mosquito Queen had already checked Yixian's body and confirmed that there was no more Slave Seal in his body. Who would have thought that a supreme being at the Black Hole State would make a mistake while inspecting a Starcore State ant? Besides, the Black Mosquito Beast had no reason to lie to him about this. Therefore, the wretched Mosquito Slayer did not expect Yixian to have the ability to counterattack, so he fell for the trap immediately. At this moment, as the level 4 Slave Seal entered his body, it took control of his monster core almost instantly. After all, a level 3 Slave Seal was enough to deal with the wretched Mosquito Slayer. However, To be safe and to avoid being discovered by the Black Mosquito Queen for too long, Yixian directly used a level 4 slave seal. The effect was obvious. The wretched mosquito slayer only uttered 2 words in his rage, and then he fell silent. His eyes were filled with confusion at first, but then they gradually became clear. In just 30 seconds, the wretched mosquito slayer stood respectfully beside Yixian as if he was a completely different person. He did not say a word, as if he was waiting for orders. This is how it should be after being controlled. Yixian secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As he carefully paid attention to the spiritual energy fluctuations in his surroundings, he instructed in a low voice, "For the time being, you don't have to treat me as your master. How are you usually? How are you now? I don't think I need to teach you this. This order will be effective until my next order appears." Just as Yixian finished speaking, the wretched mosquito slayer turned around and walked to the side, falling asleep. It seemed that after this fellow was troubled by the black mosquito mother beast, he would most likely fall asleep. However, this was good. Yixian could calm down and focus on condensing a new level, 9 slave seal. Previously, he had used 200 level, 3 slave seals to condense 100 level, 4 slave seals. Now he was going to use these 100 level, 4 slave marks. Of course, he had used one of them on the Whist Mosquito Slayer, so he was only left with 99 level, 4 slave marks. But that was enough. 2 or 4 marks to make a level 5. 2 level, 5 marks to make a level 6. And so on and so forth. Only 32 level, 4 slave seals were needed to form a level 9 slave seal. After success, Yixian would have 67 of these level 4 slave seals left. However, although it was easy to say, this process required a certain amount of time. Fortunately, the Black Mosquito Queen needed a few days to consolidate its realm. However, Yixian did not need such a long time to condense a level 9 slave seal using 32 level 4 slave seals. It could be done in about 2 days. The entire process went smoothly. 2 days later, Yixian had another level 9 slave seal in his hands. His originally worried heart was finally completely at ease. At this point, the Black Mosquito Queen still had not come out of seclusion. It would probably take about 2 more days. At this time, if Yixian had asked the Whist Mosquito Slayer to take him away, the 2 of them would most likely be able to escape. However, that was obviously impossible. In order to be safe, Yixian decided to condense another level 9 slave seal. As for the one he condensed before, he secretly gave it to the wretched mosquito butcher and gave it to him in such a manner. The reason for this was to create a double insurance. Anyway, he would still need another level 9 slave seal to deal with that guy at Mount Ibwa. What he was doing now was not useless. Of the remaining 67 level 4 slave seals, 32 were taken out by Yixian. There were 35 remaining, and there were still 200 level 3 slave seals. In the next 2 days, Yixian successfully condensed the 3rd level 9 slave seal. He kept this one with him. After doing all this, he stopped condensing all the other slave seals. This was because it was enough. After all, it was a loss to condense all the other slave seals. He felt a little heartache. Thus, he kept all the other slave seals in his undying world. He only left 1 level 9 slave seal in the spirit source core in his mind. Now, all he had to do was wait. While waiting, Yixian was burning with anxiety. Calculating the time, he had already been in the demon's nest for 4 days, and half of the 8 days had already passed. If he didn't hurry up, then Mount Ibwa would discover the abnormality on the 2nd floor. At that time, the 2,000-man demon slave armies that Yixian had subdued would all be annihilated, and that guy from Mount Ibwa would also become vigilant because of this. Even if the Black Mosquito Queen appeared now and was subdued, the remaining time would be very tight. After all, they still had to deal with a large number of demon elites on the 3rd floor. Even with the help of the subdued Black Mosquito Queen, the demon elites in the machinery area were very alert. Once they made a move, any one of them could immediately warn them. Therefore, this segment actually required time to think of a way to deal with it. Calculating in this way, only 4 days was really a tight schedule. What's more, the black mosquito magical beast hadn't appeared yet. If it delayed for another 2 days, it would really be a big mess. With this thought in mind, Xian was so anxious that he almost wanted to send the wretched mosquito slayer to the Black Mosquito Queen's seclusion area to hurry it up. However, that was obviously impossible. If he really did that, he was afraid that the other party would immediately become suspicious. When that time came, everything would really be over. These thoughts flashed through Xian's mind. He was burning with anxiety, but he did not have the slightest idea. He could only accept his fate and wait patiently. Fortunately, the Black Mosquito Queen did not disappoint him too much. Although it had taken half a day for the Black Mosquito Queen to come out of seclusion, it was only half a day. For Xian, it was basically acceptable. At this moment, with the Black Mosquito Queen coming out of seclusion, for Xian, the urgency of time and so on were almost immediately thrown to the back of his mind. Right now, the most important thing was to attack and subdue the Black Mosquito Mother Beast. If this could not be done, everything else would be for naught, and there would be no meaning to it. How is it? Did he agree? Just as Xian's heart was tightening, the Black Mosquito Queen had slowly walked over. Chapter 2682. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations returned to the third level. The mosquito slayer's face fell when he heard the mother mosquito's question. He stood to one side, embarrassed. It was obvious what he meant. Trash. The mother mosquito's expression darkened. It turned to glare at the wretched mosquito slayer, then turned its attention back to Xian. Obviously, it did not see anything unusual about the wretched mosquito slayer. On the one hand, it was because he was following Xian's orders and was behaving as usual. Even if there were some differences, they were very weak. On the other hand, the mother mosquito's attention was completely focused on Xian. Before it went into seclusion, it had said that it would have a threesome with Xian and the wretched mosquito slayer after it came out. Once it was done, it would deal with the leader of the Black Mosquito Bastion, Naboshan. Given the mother mosquito's lustful nature, it had probably thought about this many times during its seclusion. Now that it was out, it was naturally thinking about this matter. How could it have the energy to pay attention to the wretched mosquito slayer's actions? On the other hand, the latter just shrugged his shoulders and didn't say much at all. This also prevented him from speaking too much and making a mistake. In short, at least for now, the wretched mosquito slayer had successfully fooled the mother mosquito. Now, all Xian needed to do was cover for him. Indeed, from the beginning, Xian had never thought that he would be the main force in subduing the mother mosquito. After all, the mother mosquito was a supreme being in the black hole realm. Even though it had checked Xian's body and confirmed that there was nothing in it, Xian's previous performance was very unusual. Whether it was the perfect oscillation or the 9th level slave seal, there were not things that a core realm ant should be capable of. From this point of view, it was not completely unacceptable that he had the means to fool a supreme being in the black hole realm. If Xian could think of this, how could the black hole realm mother mosquito not think of it? In other words, although the mother mosquito appeared to be carefree on the surface, it was likely that she had always been on guard against him. In this sort of situation, if Xian were to place all his hopes on himself, then he would truly be courting death. The mother mosquito was approaching him with an unfriendly expression. From the looks of it, if she was not going to kill him, then she was going to use some kind of force to get rid of him. With a chill, Xian thought of course, he did not hesitate. He sent a dozen psychic wind blades of wind at once. Of course, one of these wind blades contained a 9th level slave seal. However, on the surface, Xian still pretended to be unafraid of death and would rather die than submit. Even though he knew that the other party could see through him with a single glance, this kind of disguise was actually part of his plan. He had deliberately followed the other party's guesses and did all this. You're quite good at acting. You look like you'd rather die than submit to me. It's as if you're desperate. You know that these low-level psychic wind blades are useless against me, but you still want to fight to the death. Sure enough, the mother mosquito sneered when it saw Yi Xian thought Art of War. Its face was full of disdain as it mocked. You're just an ant in the core realm. How dare you play such a trick on me, a supreme being in the black hole realm? You really don't know what's good for you. Let me guess, which wind blade is your spiritual imprint in? This one? No. Then this one? Huh? No. If that's the case, it must be this one. As the black mosquito mother bee spoke, it pointed its right hand into the distance from time to time. Each time it pointed, a spiritual wind blade would crumble halfway through. However, after trying a few times, it did not find anything. I don't believe that you're not playing any tricks. Humph, it must be this one. With a cold snort, the black mosquito mother beast raised its hand and pointed again. This time, the spirit wind blade that was slightly behind was dispersed by its finger. Then, a wisp of purplish-black spirit imprint was revealed. It did not disperse with the collapse of the spirit wind blade surrounding it. After all, it was a level 9 slave imprint. It would not disperse so easily. Ha ha. Sure enough, it seems that everything is as I've guessed. Kid, you really do have a big secret on you. Even my investigation was deceived. This time, the mother mosquito finally found evidence to prove its conjecture. It immediately laughed with a smug look on its face. It was also at this moment that the wretched mosquito slayer, who had been standing behind him less than a meter away, suddenly raised his hand and silently slapped the female mosquito's back. His cultivation was only at the satellite state, so naturally he could not hurt a supreme being in the black hole dimension. However, as the wretched mosquito butcher slapped down with his palm, the level 9 slave seal that Yi Xian handed over to him instantly entered the body of the black mosquito mother beast. Moreover, it immediately surged towards the magic core in its brain. The mother mosquito trembled violently, and its eyes widened in disbelief. It spat out a word and seemed to want to turn around and look at the wretched mosquito slayer. However, it did not have the chance to do so. Just as his body was halfway through turning, a thick sense of confusion appeared in his eyes. Obviously, the level 9 slave imprint had invaded the demon core in its brain and was rapidly eroding and controlling its consciousness. In an instant, the mother mosquito stood there in a daze. It was like a robot that had run out of electricity, and it did not move at all. Phew, I finally did it. I'll be able to return to the 3rd level soon. There's still time. Seeing this, Yi Xian's heart, which had been in his throat, finally fell back into his chest. As he muttered to himself in relief, he raised his hand and retrieved the level 9 slave imprint, which was wrapped in a psychic wind blade, into his body. After checking and confirming that the slave imprint was not damaged and that its structure was as stable as before, Yi Xian grinned and turned to look at the wretched mosquito slayer, who was standing respectfully beside him. Although I really hate you, I won't kill you humanely for the time being since you've made a great contribution this time. Perform well in the future, and perhaps one day I'll make you the captain of this black mosquito bastion. It's not entirely impossible. After he finished speaking, Yi Xian waited quietly. He knew that it would take at least a few minutes for the mother mosquito to be completely controlled. Chapter 2683. Everything plundered time passed by slowly. Unknowingly, nearly 10 minutes had passed. During this entire process, the female black mosquito beast stood there quietly with a perplexed look in its eyes. It was as if its soul had wandered into the void. It did not feel like its consciousness still existed in this world at all. This was a normal phenomenon. Yi Xian was already familiar with it, so he felt at ease and did not feel uneasy. Similarly, the wretched mosquito slayer stood respectfully at the side. If Yi Xian did not speak, he would not take the initiative to speak. This was the same as the normal demon slave. Previously, this fellow had wanted to act but failed. Instead, the more it acted, the more it did not seem like it. In the end, it finally aroused Yi Xian's suspicion. Thinking about it now, it really made one sigh. As for Yi Xian, he waited quietly at the side. He knew that there would not be any more accidents this time, so he was not anxious. Master, Black Mosquito, Beast greets you. Just as Xian was taking advantage of this opportunity to think about how everything would unfold after returning to the third floor, a delicate yet slightly timid voice finally sounded from behind him. From the voice, it was clearly the female black mosquito beast, but the feeling was completely different. If the female black mosquito beast was described as a shrewish woman before, then now its voice sounded like a shy girl next door. It was so pure that it was refreshing. Female mosquito beast? Refreshing girl next door? As these two completely different images appeared in his mind, Xian shuddered. His entire body felt unwell. He had a feeling that there was something wrong with his mind recently. Otherwise, why would he be so suspicious of his own mind? With this suspicion, Xian turned around and coincidentally met the gaze of the female black mosquito beast. What shocked Xian was that the female black mosquito beast actually blushed at first sight and lowered its head shyly. However, its eyes were filled with joy. This kind of behavior was clearly the feeling of a young girl who was yearning for love, and her sweetheart looked at each other and then hurriedly nodded her head. This time, Xian felt really bad. He even suspected that this female mosquito was faking it like the wretched mosquito slayer from before. It was said that birds of a feather flock together. These two fellows were originally jackals of the same tribe. If the wretched mosquito butcher could do it, why couldn't the female mosquito butcher do it? However, as soon as this idea popped into his head, Xian immediately rejected it, because that was impossible no matter what. The wretched mosquito slayer had done that because he had some ulterior motives. However, this female mosquito really didn't exist anymore. Even if it had ulterior motives, it could have used a more direct method. For an existence with a supreme cultivation base at the black hole realm, was there a need to do this? Of course, more importantly, Xian had confidence in the grade 9 slave seal. Previously, he had failed on the wretched mosquito butcher because he didn't understand the attribute of the slave seal. However, now that he understood, he definitely wouldn't make the same mistake again. Thinking of this, Xian immediately made up his mind. He coldly glanced at the female black mosquito and said, "From now on, you have to follow me out of this demon nest. Black Mosquito is your real name, so I can't change it arbitrarily. You can call yourself Black Mosquito in private, but it's not very convenient in front of others. There's a risk of your identity being exposed. So, in front of others, you'll be called the Mosquito. Also, you have to conceal your cultivation base. Just like the mosquito butcher, you'll be in the satellite state. Of course, the most important thing is your appearance. You haven't fully transformed, but fortunately, your head and limbs are no different from a demon's. The only thing missing is your main body. This is easy to solve. Just put on some clothes and cover yourself up. This way, no one will be able to see your body. The only problem is the mosquito wings on your back. Can you put them away?" "Yes, master. These are all small problems. Li Mosquito can solve them with a wave of my hand." Hearing Xian's words, the black mosquito mother beast nodded with a very obedient expression. Immediately after, she didn't take out her clothes or anything like that. With just a wave of her hand, the originally naked mosquito beast's black body was bound by a light purple tight suit. From the outside, it looked like a human or demon woman with a fiery figure and a seductive appearance. Even the pair of black mosquito wings on her back were absorbed into her body. At the same time, her cultivation base was concealed to the satellite state according to Xian's instructions. However, she was a level 9 satellite state, which was much more powerful than the wretched mosquito butcher, who was a level 4 satellite state. In this way, Xian, the wretched mosquito butcher, and the female black mosquito. No, she should be called Li Mosquito now. When the three of them stood together, it was impossible to tell that there was a black whole state female black mosquito among them. They were all demons. The only strange thing was that the wretched mosquito butcher and Li Mosquito, who were both satellite states, were extremely respectful to Xian, who was only a core state. It was unbelievable. Very good. Xian was extremely satisfied with Li Mosquito's actions. As a result, he could boldly bring it out with him. With the help of this level 7 black hole state female black mosquito, it would be much easier for him to sweep through the 3rd level. At this thought, Yixian couldn't help but soften his tone. He looked at Li Mosquito and said, "We're about to leave this place. Our target is the 3rd level of the Black Mosquito Bastion. If there are no accidents, I'm afraid we won't be back for a while. If you have any treasures in this demon nest, it's best if you take them out now and take them with you." Yixian asked because he was a little curious. His opponent was a black hole state supreme being, so surely she would have some treasures that would surprise him. Now that he was the master, if there was anything he wanted, Yixian wouldn't be polite and would take it away immediately. However, what surprised him was that after hearing Yixian's words, the black mosquito mother beast shook her head without the slightest hesitation. "Master, the mosquito mother beast doesn't even have an ordinary star core origin, let alone other treasures. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been unable to break through all these years. When she was captured, all the cultivation resources were taken away." Yixian was very surprised by this, but after a moment's thought, he understood. If that wasn't the case, the female black mosquito wouldn't have been so bored as to refine the entire demon nest into its own treasure. She had neither cultivation resources nor treasures that could be used to nourish her body. Only someone who was extremely bored would do such a thing. In a way, it was the commander of the demon tribe who had taken away its treasures that had almost caused Yixian to fail. Chapter 2684. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, there was no time to lose. Yixian still had 200 rank 3 slave seals, 35 rank 4 slave seals, and 1 rank 9 slave seal. A rank 9 slave seal was meant to deal with Naboshan, a black hole realm elite. But they couldn't kill all of the Demonkin elites below Mount Naibwa. Just the 3rd floor alone required at least 200 Demonkin elites to keep the Black Mosquito Bastion running. If they couldn't kill them all, then it would be pointless to try to steal a bastion that couldn't function. The 200 rank 3 slave seals he had were meant for these 200 elite demons to keep the Black Mosquito Bastion running. Rank 3 slave seals could control demons at the satellite realm. 200 satellite realm elites were more than enough to keep the 3rd level engine room running. In that case, there were only 35 4th rank slave seals left. Since Naboshan couldn't be killed right away, there was still a leader above him who commanded 10 Demonkin bastions. Naboshan was one of his subordinates. If Naboshan died, the Black Mosquito would be in great danger before it could leave the domain of the falling stars. Since that was the case, Naboshan should have some guard around him, right? These 35 rank 4 slave seals were meant for this group of guards to keep up appearances. A rank 4 slave seal could control demons at the planet realm of the 4th realm. It was considered strong. 35 planet realm elites were enough to keep up appearances in certain situations. Of course, there would be other demons in the Black Mosquito Bastion whose strength was between the planet realm and the black hole realm. Although there weren't many of them, they definitely existed. However, Yixian didn't plan to keep them around. If he encountered any, he would kill them all. After all, the Black Mosquito Bastion was important, but to Yixian, it was an external object. To him, the most important thing was his own cultivation. The higher the realm of an elite demon, the stronger and purer the spiritual origin power contained in its brain core. Obtaining a high-level demon's brain core was extremely important to Yixian's cultivation. Although the special spiritual origin core in his brain didn't seem to have much to do with the human cultivation system, Yixian believed that once he reached a certain level, the two would have something in common. When that time came, Yixian's cultivation would experience a qualitative leap because of the demon's brain core in his brain. In fact, this effect was already manifested. Although he was only at the core realm level 8, because of the existence of the spiritual origin core in his sea of knowledge, he could easily kill a core realm level 9 being. After all, he was a freak who combined the consciousness and spiritual power of both human and demon cultivators. He couldn't be measured by common sense. Before stepping out of the portal leading to the demon nests, Yixian had already issued orders to Li Mosquito and the wretched Mosquito Slayer. In short, 200 satellite realm demon elites were to be left behind. 35 planet realm demon elites were to be left behind. Once this number was reached, the rest were to be killed and their brains dissected for their cores. As for the corpses, they were to be left for Xianxia to use the demonic Bloodstar essence sword to absorb their flesh and blood essence. This had always been done this way. When Barker led the demon slaves to guard the central hall on the second floor, the corpses of the demon scouts were all piled up together for Xianxia to use the demonic Bloodstar essence sword to absorb their flesh and blood essence. It was also because of this reason that after absorbing a large amount of demon flesh and blood essence, the demonic Bloodstar essence sword, which had completed its fourth fusion, had become more and more bloody and murderous. What Xianxia didn't expect was that when he led the wretched Mosquito Slayer and Li Mosquito out of the portal on the left that led to the demon nests, he turned around and saw a figure who had just walked out of the portal in the middle. The portal in the middle led to the fourth floor above. This guy's cultivation wasn't weak. He was actually a star-grade powerhouse at the 5th level. At this moment, he had just stepped out of the portal in the middle when he sensed the movement beside him and subconsciously turned around to look. Then, his expression changed and he immediately exclaimed, "Mosquito Slayer? These two are. That woman is Black Mosquito. How dare you?" His expression changed drastically as he turned around and retreated to the portal behind him. However, the moment he stepped out, the black light film in the portal in the middle dissipated. If he wanted to use it now, he had to reactivate it. This delay also allowed Li Mosquito, who was behind Xianxia, to appear behind this person in a flash. She raised her hand, and the demon quietly fell to the ground. His head was cut open, and a black demon core fell into Li Mosquito's hand, which she handed to Xianxia. A Stargrade powerhouse at the 5th level was gone in the blink of an eye. This scene made even Xianxia a little unable to accept it for a moment. He stood there in a daze, his heart beating wildly. It wasn't until now that he deeply realized how lucky he was to be able to subdue Black Mosquito Slayer. After receiving the level 5 demon core, Xianxia directly threw it to the devouring system in his body. The system immediately began to decompose it and extract the essence of the demon's spiritual origin power. Then he flipped his hand and took out the demonic Bloodstar essence sword and directly slashed at the elite demon on the ground. Chi! A soft sound like ripping silk was heard, and the elite demon's corpse withered visibly. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a withered corpse. Apart from the spiritual origin power in his body, all the essence of his flesh and blood was absorbed by Xianxia's demonic Bloodstar essence sword. After all, this was all the flesh and blood essence of Stargrade powerhouse at the 5th level. Xianxia even had an illusion that the demonic Bloodstar essence sword in his hand seemed to be cheering as if it had eaten to its heart's content. This person is a confidant of Naboshan in the entire Black Mosquito Fortress. His position is equivalent to the chief steward. Generally speaking, if there are any problems in the lower 3 levels, he will come over to deal with them. At this time, the wretched Mosquito Slayer's voice was also heard. Xianxia's body trembled, and his face immediately turned gloomy. He had a premonition that the sharp decrease in the number of demon scouts entering and leaving the Black Mosquito Fortress had attracted the attention of the higher-ups. Although this person had now appeared on the 3rd level, this was obviously just a transition. He had passed through the 3rd level, and his destination was ultimately the 2nd level below. Fortunately, he had returned in time. Otherwise, if he had been a few hours later, and this person had returned from the 2nd level to the 4th level, the whole matter would have been exposed in advance. Chapter 2685. A sea of cultivation resources after storing the corpse of his trusted aide in his undying world. Xianxia led Li Mosquito and the wretched Mosquito Slayer to the 3rd level of the warehouse. The area was vast, but it was more enclosed than the outside. It was an independent system. 200 Demonkin elites were permanently stationed here, and there were resource warehouses, daily supplies warehouses, and energy warehouses. The storehouse was filled with the planet's core and other treasures that the 10,000 Demonkin scouts had excavated from the outside world. The storehouse was filled with cultivation resources that were distributed to the Demonkin Scouts, a type of black, or that contained a mysterious energy that could be extracted and converted into psychic power. Of course, these resources were of a lower level, and Xian didn't care for them. Compared to using Demonkin brain cores to cultivate, they were much slower. The power supply warehouse was where the Black Mosquito Bastion's daily operations were stored. Everything was stored here, including the defensive shields, attack systems, and the like. The warehouse wasn't a place anyone could enter as they wished, and this was where the wretched Mosquito Slayer's usefulness came into play. It was shameless, and in the end the guards were so infuriated that they opened the door. They wanted to chase it away, but Xian placed a slave seal on them. These guards were all Satellite Realm elites, so Xian had placed a third-rank slave seal on them. After instantly subduing the guards of the warehouse area, the rest of the matter was much easier to handle. Xian directly had these guys issue a summon order to all the demon storage staff in the large area. He said that someone from above had come to investigate and told them to gather at the entrance of the warehouse area. As such, aside from a few important warehouse workers in the resource warehouse who couldn't leave, almost all of the other devilish warehouse workers had arrived. Once all 200 of them had gathered, Xian ordered the Mosquito, who was hiding at the side, to kill them all. The Black Hole Realm expert killed more than half of them without much effort. Of the 200 Demonkin guards, Xian only kept 20 Satellite Realm experts. After all, the warehouse needed to function normally, but the Demonkin's management was a little too weak. 20 Satellite Realm experts were more than enough to manage the warehouse. After throwing all the demon cores to the devouring system, Xian immediately took out the demonic blood essence sword and absorbed the essence of the other 100 or so Satellite Realm Demonkin elites. After drinking to his heart's content, the demonic blood essence sword became more and more cheerful. Xian had a premonition that this superb offensive treasure that had undergone 4 levels of fusion was going to undergo some unknown changes. After doing all this, the 3 of them were led by several elite Demonkin Realm Demonkin elites to the warehouse's core area. There were 2 Senior Planet Realm Demonkin guards there. They weren't allowed to leave even for a moment because the items they were looking after were too important. They were the core sources that the Black Mosquito Bastion's 10,000 Demonkin scouts had handed in over the years, as well as other treasures, rare minerals, and the like. As for the entire 3rd floor's warehouse area, Xian wasn't interested in the other ordinary supplies or the energy required to operate the space fortress. The only things he was interested in were the core sources, rare minerals, and treasures the Demonkin had collected. He was destined to loot these 2 warehouses. The 2 high-level storekeepers at the planet realm were quickly killed by the Mosquito. After Xian collected the magic core and extracted the essence of its flesh and blood, he first walked into the first large warehouse that was used to store all sorts of rare minerals and star core origins. Almost in the next instant, the notifications from the devouring system rang crazily in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. 1 cubic meter of 9-colored star core discovered. Grade: Star rank legendary mineral. Ding! Congratulations to the host. 3-star tier crystals discovered. Grade: Star rank epic mineral. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Indestructible void metal discovered. Grade: Star rank precious mineral. Xian was stunned when he heard the notifications in his mind. Generally speaking, there were 3 types of star rank treasures and minerals in the context of the stars: ordinary, supreme, and supreme. Above these 3, there were actually 3 more types. However, they were basically rare, so they were usually not mentioned under normal circumstances. They were respectively legendary, epic, and supreme treasure. The 8th grade Black Star Core and the 9th grade 9-colored Star Core were only legendary rank treasures. As for Xian's Purple Star Shuttle, the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword, and the Purple Phoenix Glass Armor, even though they had already been fused 4 times, they could only be considered to be of the highest quality. From this, it could be seen how precious epic grade ores and treasures were. There was no need to even mention the true treasure level, which was above the epic level. So far, Xian had only obtained one incomplete precious rank treasure and one incomplete epic rank treasure. The incomplete precious rank treasure was the Void Dimension Fragment, and the incomplete epic rank treasure was the fragment of the Immortal Star Superbrain. Who would have thought that he would actually obtain 3 epic star tier crystals and a piece of indestructible void metal? This was a huge surprise. In comparison, the 1 cubic meter of 9-colored star core was completely ignored by Xian. Of course, there were still a lot of good things in this warehouse. Most of them were star core sources and various rare minerals. Xian did not hesitate and kept 60% of them into his undying world, piling them up into several small mountains. The reason why he said 60% was because the remaining 40% was not enough for him. Most of them were level 2 and level 3 planetary core sources, as well as some top-grade ores. He had to leave some for the Black Mosquito Bastion. After all, if he had to deal with Bastion Commander Wuxia in the future, he had to give something up. With that done, Xian made his way to the warehouse across from him. Unlike the previous star core origin and mineral storage, the things stored here were all magic treasures. They were either obtained by killing people in the outside world, or picked up from some planets, or obtained from some cave residences and relics. After all, tens of thousands of Demon Dweller Scouts were active in this star field all year round. Some of the immortal caves of the predecessors on the stars basically could not escape their search. As soon as he entered the warehouse, the devouring system notification sounded out in his mind once again. It was all a good notification. Xian was stunned once again. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Banners discovered. Grade: Legendary Astral Treasure. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Wormhole Warship discovered. Grade: Epic Astral Warship. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Ride Seal discovered. Grade: Ultimate Treasure, Origin Treasure. Chapter 2686. Translator: Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Erosion, Living Area Soul, Subduing Banner. As the name suggests, is a soul-type magic treasure. It is a legendary starry sky treasure. Wormhole ship. Generally speaking, only large star-class battleships or space fortresses can perform wormhole jumps between universe planes. A 3,000-meter-long planet-class battleship like the Federation's 3,000-meter-long planet-class battleship will definitely not be able to withstand it. A small private battleship less than 1,000 meters long is even more impossible. Wormhole ship is a private battleship that can withstand wormhole jumps. It is said that in the entire Empire, only a group of technical elites from the machinery race under Imperial Preceptor Dier can build this. Of course, the Tianji race can build it too, because this small private battleship can allow cultivators to perform wormhole jumps between universe planes. Both the Wan Luo Federation and the Tianji race have very strict control over it. It is basically impossible for it to be leaked. Who would have thought that they would encounter one here? As for the final Lightning Emperor seal, this seal was a natural origin treasure nurtured by the heavens and earth. It was born in a star domain shrouded in boundless lightning. It was a treasure nurtured by the boundless lightning of that star domain. It was the origin of the great Tao of lightning in the universe, and it controlled the boundless lightning in the void of the galaxy. However, with Xian's current ability, it is impossible for him to refine this origin treasure. Not to mention him, even the black hole realm Li Mosquito might not be able to do it. Therefore, after Xian kept it, he directly threw it into his undying world. He will only use it when his cultivation level increases. Other than these 3 legendary starry sky treasures, there are many other magic treasures. Similarly, Xian collected about 60% of the magic treasures that he was interested in, which is more than 10,000 magic treasures. The remaining 40% is left in the warehouse to deal with Wuxia in the future. In less than 2 hours, the warehouse area of the 3rd level was cleared out. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, but in fact, among the 3 areas of the 3rd level, this warehouse area is the least likely to have any accidents. Therefore, Xian did not relax at all. There is not much suspense in the following areas of the living area, but it is hard to guarantee that there will be no accidents in the last area, the machinery area. After leaving the warehouse area, Yixian immediately brought Li Mosquito and the wretched mosquito slayer to the living area. Coincidentally, they met two satellite realm demon elites outside of the living area. Yixian immediately used 2 grade 3 slave seals to subdue them and started interrogating them. The surprise came too quickly. It turned out that today was the day when the 200 or so demon elites in the living area would switch shifts with the 200 or so demon elites in the engine room. There were still 4 hours left. In other words, if Yixian was able to subdue all of the demon cultivator elites that had been resting in the living area for 3 days within 4 hours, then he would be able to effortlessly take over the engine room after 4 hours. At that time, the only thing left to do was to kill the 200 or so demon elites that had returned to the living quarters after their shift had been changed. At this point, the entire 3rd level is swept clean. Due to the urgency of time, Yixian, Li Mosquito, and the wretched mosquito slayer immediately took action. They quickly invaded the villas and caves, and in less than 2 hours, all the 210 demon elites in the entire living area were killed. Most of them were satellite realm experts, and there were also some meteor realm demon elites. There were even planet realm demon elites, but they were all killed by Yixian's orders, because he did not have enough slave seals. 35 level 4 slave seals and 1 level 9 slave seal were prepared for Naboshan and his 35 personal guards. As for the remaining 200 level 3 slave seals, 25 of them were used in the warehouse. Now, there were only 175 left. Therefore, out of the 210 elite demons, they could only kill 30 or so of them. Fortunately, they explained that they only needed 130 demon elites to control the entire machinery area. The 100 or so demon elites that were usually present were actually taking shifts in the machinery area. Now, Yixian had more than 40 demon slaves, enough for them to take small shifts. He was not afraid that these demon slaves, who would help him in the future, would die of exhaustion. In less than 2 hours, Yixian had only 36 slave seals left, and the entire 3rd level living area was unknowingly taken over by him. Although everything looked normal on the surface, in reality, this area was already Yixian's world. At this point, only the 210 demon elites were left to be dealt with. Once they were all killed, only the 4th level of the Black Mosquito Bastion was left. Under Yixian's orders, the 175 demon slaves left the living area in batches and headed for the machinery area. Every time a batch of demonic slaves left, an equal number of demonic slaves would come out of the machinery area and enter the living area. Under these circumstances, Li Mosquito had no need to hesitate. She acted immediately and killed them all. All Yixian needed to do was take the Devil Cultivator's brain core from his hands, take out the Devil Bloodstar Essence Sword, and absorb all the flesh and blood essence from the corpses of the Devil Cultivator elites. Then, with a wave of his hand, he stored the remaining withered corpses into the undying world within his body. Time passed slowly. Before they knew it, another 2 hours had passed. As batch after batch of demon slaves entered the engine room, they were exchanged for batch after batch of demon elites. Until now, after more than 10 times in a row, the entire engine room had undergone a huge change. All of the demon elites inside had come out, and the ones controlling the engine room were all Yixian's demon slaves. As for the devil elite that came out of the building, other than the 2 planet realm managers who were subdued by Yixian using 2 level 4 slave seals, the rest were all killed. At this point, the entire 3rd level had been swept clean. In addition to a large amount of cultivation resources and treasures, Yixian had also obtained several 100 demon brain cores. He had fed them to the devouring system so that it could rapidly decompose them and extract the pure spiritual energy contained within. In addition, his demon bloodstar essence had also absorbed a large amount of demon blood essence. Its bloodthirsty and nimble feeling had grown stronger. Yixian even had an illusion that this supreme-grade, offensive magic treasure was about to give birth to a sword spirit. If that was the case, its quality would instantly increase from the supreme grade to a legendary grade offensive magic treasure. But right now, Yixian didn't have the mood to pay too much attention to this, because to him, there was still a more important and final link that needed to be completed. That was to sweep through the 4th level and subdue Mount Naibwa. The chief and deputy chief manager of the 3rd floor's engine room that he had left behind and used 2 level 4 slave seals to subdue were the preparations he had to make to achieve this last step. Chapter 2687. Translator, Hinyi Translations Editor. Hinyi Translations entering the 4th level and the entire 3rd level. The only people who could activate the portal in the middle of the small square and enter the 4th level were the 2 planet-grade managers of the machinery area. They were called Tu Wei and Alei. Thanks to Tu Wei and Alei, Yixian quickly understood the situation on the 4th level of the Black Mosquito Bastion. The 4th level of the Black Mosquito Bastion was the most powerful force in the entire Black Mosquito Bastion. There were only 181 demons, including the leader, Naboshin. The core of these 181 demons was Naboshin, his 50 elite guards, his 5 trusted advisors, and his 5 trusted stewards. The other 120 people were all demon slaves who served Naboshin. Among these 120 people, 60 of them were beautiful demon slave maids. The other 60 were demon slaves who served the daily life of Mount Naibwa and enjoyed luxurious daily life, including the so-called kitchen slaves who were good at making all kinds of delicious food and wine. It could be said that these 120 demonic slaves were all high-level slaves. Most of their cultivation bases were around the satellite realm. After learning about this situation, Yixian immediately gave orders to the wretched mosquito killer, Enli Mosquito. There was no need to deal with these 120 demon slaves of Naboshin. After Naboshin was dealt with, they would definitely not dare to act rashly. After Yixian dealt with everything, he would refine 120 level 3 slave seals and subdue them. After all, the 4th level couldn't lack such talents. Otherwise, wouldn't they be exposed on the spot if they didn't even have high-level slave maids and high-level demon slaves when they came in contact with the other higher-ups of the Space Fortress? In other words, the only people they had to deal with on the 3rd level were Naboshin, his 50 guards, 5 trusted advisors, and 5. No, for trusted butlers. This was because one of them had already been killed. There were only 60 high-level demons in total. It didn't seem like a lot, but these 60 people were extremely difficult to deal with. The 50 guards were all 4th-grade planet-grade beings. Yixian still had 33 level 4 slave seals, so he could deal with more than half of them. As for the remaining 17, he just had to kill them. As for Naboshin, his cultivation level was at the 4th level of the Black Hole Realm. He had just entered the middle level of the Black Hole Realm and was 3 levels lower than Li Jing. Of course, at that time, Yixian would use perfect oscillation to hide at the side and watch the opportunity to plant the level 9 slave seal on him. The key was the 5 trusted advisors of Mount Naibwa and the 4 trusted butlers. These 9 were all planetesimals of the 5th rank of the starry sky, planetesimals. What's more, they were indispensable to the Black Mosquito Bastion. Even if Yixian didn't stay behind, at least one of his advisors and stewards had to be left behind. Otherwise, the entire Black Mosquito Bastion would be difficult to manage in the future. It just so happened that Yixian had underestimated the need for this and did not have a level 5 slave seal on hand. Forget it. 33 personal guards. I'll take in 3 less. I'll just keep 3. After pondering for a while, Yixian made a decision. This way, there will be 3 free level 4 slave seals. I just need to refine 1 more level 4 slave seal. With these 4 level 4 slave seals, I will be able to fuse 2 level 5 slave seals. It just so happens that one of the planet-grade advisors and stewards will be left behind. It will be barely enough to maintain the normal operation of the Black Mosquito Bastion. After muttering like this, Yixian immediately started to condense the slave seals. Fortunately, it was only condensing 1 level 4 slave seal. With Yixian's full effort, it was completed in a few hours. Then, he fused the 4 level 4 slave seals into 2 level 5 slave seals. At this point, He had a total of 33 slave seals in his possession. 1 level 9 slave seal, 2 level 5 slave seals, 30 level 4 slave seals. The fourth level is divided into the core area and the outer area. The two areas are separated by a circular corridor. The outer area is the area where the more than 100 servant attendants work. Wei Tuo continued to explain in detail. In this wide, circular corridor that separates the two areas, there are 3 teams of Nibel Mountain's personal guards patrolling continuously. Each team has 10 people, and the other 20 personal guards are on rotational rest. Their living place is also at the outer area of the circular corridor. It is a personal guard dormitory in the north corner. As for the inner area of the circular corridor, it is the core of the fourth level. It is divided into 2 parts. Delay continued to explain. The part on the left is where the intelligence center of the entire Black Mosquito Bastion is located. It is a superbrain. Nibel Mountain's 5 planet-grade advisors are active in this area. The core area on the right is Nibel Mountain's private property. Usually, other than him, there are only 5 trusted stewards there. Other than that, there are some demon elites who are summoned for questioning, or some beautiful demon attendants who serve him there. In other words, among the 60 targets that we need to deal with on the 4th level, the 50 personal guards can be dealt with immediately. Yi Xian's eyes lit up, and he immediately made arrangements. After entering, first subdue the 3 groups of patrolling personal guards in the circular corridor. Then, order them to monitor the core area. We will take advantage of this darkness and enter the living place of the personal guards in the north corner. First, we will deal with the other 20 personal guards, and then enter the core area. Don't bother about the 5 advisors and the 4 stewards. If you encounter them, just leave one of them and kill the rest. After we enter the core area, what we need to do is to go straight to the root of the problem. The first thing we need to do is to attack Nibel Mountain. Two-Way, Delay, and the wretched mosquito killer are not to enter, lest they are killed by Nibel Mountain. Only Mosquito and I will enter the core area. At that time, Mosquito will be in the light, and I will be in the dark. I will try to deal with Nibel Mountain as soon as possible, and then deal with his advisors and stewards. Finally, you take the 30 subdued personal guards and gather the 120 high-level demon slaves on the 4th level. Do you all understand? After saying that, Yi Xian turned his head and glanced at the wretched mosquito killer, Mosquito, Two-Way, and Delay. His gaze swept across their faces. The 4 of them nodded, indicating that there was no problem. Good. In that case, let's begin the operation. Enter the 4th level. After saying that, Yi Xian took a deep breath and took a step back with the mosquito and the wretched mosquito killer. Two-Way was the first to step forward. After activating the space door, he stepped in. According to Yi Xian's instructions, Mosquito was the second to enter, followed by the wretched mosquito killer. Then, Delay activated the space door again. This time, to be safe, Yi Xian stepped in first, followed by Delay. Chapter 2688. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios' The Great Battle Against Mount Nibwedu. To Yi Xian's meticulous planning, the 5 of them entered the 4th level and started their operation. Everything went smoothly. Of course, this was mainly due to Mosquito's Black Hole State Level 7 strength. Under the suppression of the Mosquito, a total of 3 teams of 30-star Realm Devil Cultivator personal guards were all successfully subdued by Yi Xian by planting a Level 4 slave seal on them 3 times. Then, the 5 of them rushed to the personal guards' living quarters 500 meters away. Mosquito acted and killed the 20 planetary state personal guards that were resting inside. Although the brains were dissected on the spot, Yi Xian didn't hand the corpses over to the demonic blood star essence sword to absorb the essences. This was because he was worried that the demonic blood star essence sword would evolve from a super grade to a legendary grade attack treasure. There would definitely be a commotion that would affect the entire situation. Therefore, these 20 corpses were kept in Yi Xian's undying world and left for the demonic blood star essence sword to absorb later. It was worth mentioning that the Undying World was the new name of the devouring space. Because the devouring space was the most advanced technology of the Undying Dynasty, the devouring space could continuously grow to the level of an astral realm. Therefore, it had a new name, the Undying World. At the same time, this was the top secret of the Wan Luo Federation. It was related to the creation of a new universe. Although the Undying World couldn't store a living Starry Sky rank expert, Yixian couldn't use this move to bring Du Wenxuan out when he wanted to help him escape. However, it was still possible to collect the corpse of a dead Starry Sky rank expert. At this point, out of the 60 people that needed to be dealt with on the 4th level, 50 of them had been dealt with. The remaining ones were the 4 trusted butlers, the 5 trusted advisors, and Mount Naibwa himself. A total of 10 people. As for the slave seals in Yixian's hands, there were only 3 remaining. 2 level 5 and 1 level 9. Next, the 5 of them split into 2 groups. The wretched mosquito killer, Tu Wei, and Pulei each led a team of 10 subdued planetary state personal guards. They patrolled the circular corridor that separated the 2 regions, preventing any servants from entering the core region. Meanwhile, Yixian and Li Mosquito had just entered the core area of the 4th floor. According to the original plan, the 2 of them would directly enter the right side of the core area of the 4th floor, which was the private property of Mount Naibwa. However, after subduing the 30 demon cultivator bodyguards, Yixian asked them for a bit and found out a new piece of information. It was that the Black Mosquito Star Fortress's intelligence center on the left side of the core area, which was also the super brain of the Starry Sky. It had an emergency ability, which was self-detonation. This ability was controlled by 5 of Naibwa's advisors. If 4 of them entered the seal, the entire bastion would self-destruct. This information shocked Yixian so much that he changed his plan at the last minute. Now, he and Li Mosquito were heading in the direction of the AI core hall on the left side of the core area. Li Mosquito swaggered around. As the guardian beast of the Black Mosquito Bastion, it had been here before. In the past 10 years, it had come here once every 3 or 4 years. It did indeed have the authority to enter the 4th floor. Mount Naibwa had the master seal that controlled its mental imprint, so there was no need to worry about it doing anything destructive. It would be fine as long as it didn't leave the Black Mosquito Bastion. As for Yixian, he activated the perfect oscillation. His figure and aura completely disappeared. The 5 advisors of Mount Naibwa were all level 5 planetary state powerhouses. In front of Li Mosquito, who was at the black hole state, they might not be as insignificant as the core state powerhouses, but they were still insignificant at best. It sounded awkward, but in fact it meant exactly that. To put it bluntly, they were still insignificant. However, when Li Mosquito entered the AI core hall of the Black Mosquito Bastion, the 5 of them turned their heads at the same time. When they saw that it was Li Mosquito, they were stunned for a moment. Then, they laughed at the same time. Black Mosquito, didn't you just come here 3 years ago? What's wrong? That guy called Mosquito Butcher can't satisfy you anymore? You didn't kill him, did you? Ha ha ha. That's most likely the case. I thought that kid was very powerful. He used to have 1 die every month, but he actually lasted 3 years. Now it seems that he's just SOSO. It looks like he's here to ask for a boy toy from the leader again. If this goes on, the Black Mosquito Bastion will be almost depleted by you. Black Mosquito, your appetite is growing. That place is so big, so naturally. Your appetite is different from before. Ha ha ha. As the 5 of them laughed mockingly, Li Mosquito's expression darkened. She asked the air beside her, "Master, can I have one more?" "How dare you?" Yixian was furious and scolded. At the same time, he immediately attacked. A level 5 slave seal shot out and landed on the forehead of the person in the middle of the 5 Naibwa Mountain think tanks. Almost at the same time, Li Mosquito sighed helplessly. "All right, for then." Boom. Boom. Before he finished speaking, for mountain-like pressure appeared and directly enveloped the other 4 people. "Kacha! Kacha! Black Mosquito, you dare to rebel? Who's the other one? You call him master? This is unacceptable." As the 4 mountain-like pressure fell, The other 4 people's leg bones were instantly broken. Their bodies fell short, and, at the same time, they roared in anger. In the next moment, Lee Mosquito had already arrived in front of the 4 of them. Without seeing it make a move, the 4 people's heads had already cracked open. 4 huge black prismatic crystals fell out and fell into Lee Mosquito's hands. Lee Mosquito handed them to the air beside her. This will not happen again. Xianxia coldly swept his gaze over the mosquito. He saw that it was obedient, but there was still anger in its eyes. It was obvious that it was angered just now. Although Xianxia was also curious, it was originally such a perverted nature. Why would others be so angry when they teased it? However, Xianxia did not think too much about it. After throwing the 4 level 5 demon cores to the devouring system, he waved his hand and kept the 4 demon think tank's corpses into his undying world. At this time, the demon think tank in the middle had also regained clarity in his eyes. He directly knelt on the ground and called out to his master. "All right, you just stay here." After saying that, Xianxia activated the perfect vibration again and directly urged Lee Mosquito. "All right, hurry up and move. Go to the right area. There's still 5 people. Remember, you can only kill 3. 1 butler and Nibel Mountain can only be subdued. Let's move immediately. Nibel Mountain has already sensed your aura just now." After saying that, the master and servant simultaneously left the intelligence center hall on the left and quickly rushed to the right of the core area of the 4th floor. At the same time, just as the 2 of them rushed out of the intelligence center hall on the left, in a huge luxurious hall that belonged to Nibel Mountain's private territory on the right. Chapter 2689. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translation subduing Nibel Mountain Black Mosquito Bastion in Nibel Mountain's private territory to the right of the core area of the 4th floor. This private territory also used space folding technology. Although it was only half of the core area of the 4th floor of the Black Mosquito Bastion, the internal space was several kilometers wide, far exceeding the diameter of the Black Mosquito Bastion's 1,000 meters from the outside. Basically, only Nibel Mountain and his 5 trusted stewards stayed in this area. Of course, from time to time, some of the higher-ups of the Black Mosquito Bastion were summoned by Nibel Mountain for questioning, as well as some servants who brought him good wine and food. Some beautiful demon women also came to serve him. Right now, there were 3 beautiful demon women there, serving Nibel Mountain, who was half lying on the sofa. On the other hand, his 4 planet-grade subordinates were sitting on a sofa in different directions of this large area, as if nothing had happened. They were all busy with their own matters. It was not until Nabashan muttered to himself that the 4 housekeepers all raised their heads, and displeasure appeared on their faces. As planet-grade powerhouses, they had naturally sensed the aura emitted by the Black Mosquito Mother Beast just now. It was worth mentioning that the Black Mosquito Mother Beast was also very clever. When it had used its pressure to instantly suppress and kill the 4 stewards of Nibel Mountain, the pressure it had emitted had remained at Black Hole Realm Level 6. This meant that it had benefited from the disaster because of Xianxia and broken through to the late Black Hole Realm in one fell swoop. Although it was far stronger than Nibel Mountain, who was at Black Hole Realm Level 4, it was 2 small levels higher. One was at the early stage of the intermediate stage, while the other was at the peak of the intermediate stage. However, whether it was Nibel Mountain or the 4 stewards in the same area as him, they obviously didn't take it to heart. Although the Black Mosquito Mother Beast was stronger than Nibel Mountain, it didn't dare to really make a move. At most, it would come to threaten him. This kind of thing had happened several times before, but because the wretched mosquito butcher had held on for 3 years, it felt like it had been a long time. Yes, every time the Black Mosquito Mother Beast came to show its power, it was because the demon scouts sent by Nibel Mountain to serve it were too weak and accidentally killed by it. Therefore, the Black Mosquito Mother Beast, who had not had enough fun, ran to the 4th level in a fit of anger. It emitted its aura and protested to Mount Nibwa. But the latter didn't care at all. Although the Black Mosquito Mother Beast was strong, it had the child seal of the spiritual imprint planted by the tribe's great commander who had captured it. The mother seal had just been in the hands of Nabashan. If the Black Mosquito were to succeed, Mount Naibwa would be able to subdue it even though it was weaker than it. However, in order to make a horse run, one naturally had to feed it grass. Naboshin understood this principle. Therefore, she had only accidentally killed the wretched mosquito that had persisted under her for 3 years. However, she wasn't satisfied yet, so in a moment of desperation, she ran to the 4th level and threw a tantrum as usual, asking for a gigolo to quench her cravings. Naturally, such a small request should be fulfilled. Moreover, because this kind of thing had not happened for 3 years, even if he was disturbed while he was enjoying himself, Naboshin still did not get angry. Fine, it's none of your business. Continue shrugging. Hurry up. Naboshin scolded softly as he turned to greet the 4 confidants around him. Go. Didn't Song Peng go down to check on the situation? Let him bring a stronger, low-level demon up from the 2nd level and quickly get rid of that coquettish female mosquito outside. What a bummer. Sigh. I thought quite highly of that wretched mosquito butcher. I didn't expect him to only persist for 3 years. The 4 confidants looked at each other. One of them stood up and muttered to himself while shaking his head and sighing, I didn't expect him to be killed in the end. I'm afraid that in the future, we'll have to go back to being disturbed once a month. It's really depressing. As he spoke, the confidant butler had already walked to the entrance of this large area. He raised his hand and lifted a spiritual imprint. Soon, a light flashed, and the entrance that was originally flickering with a thick layer of black light film was cleared. The light film disappeared. However, outside the entrance, the black mosquito mother beast's sullen face appeared in front of him. This guy was stunned. Before he could say anything, Yi Xian, who had hidden his figure, raised his hand and lifted a level 5 slave seal, which instantly disappeared into his forehead. The confidant butler's eyes immediately fell into confusion, and he stood there in a daze. Lee Mosquito stepped in with a black face, its eyes flashing with monstrous anger and killing intent. Although it couldn't enter through the light door just now, it heard all the words inside clearly. For some reason, since it was subdued by Yi Xian, its temperament changed completely in an instant. It was no longer evil, and once it heard someone talk about its past, it immediately looked like it was about to go berserk. As Lee Mosquito entered, Yi Xian also entered this area quietly. At the same time, he prepared the remaining level 9 slave seal at the first time. When the time was right, he would shoot it immediately. Boom, 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 boom. Of the 4 confidant butlers, the one Yi Xian wanted had been confirmed, so there was no need to keep the remaining 3 guys. In fact, after entering, Lee Mosquito blasted out 4 black hole realm auras in succession, not 3. 3 of them directly shook the 3 confidant butlers until they bled from their 7 orifices and died. The last one was aimed at Naibwa Mountain. Although the latter was alert at the first moment and dodged, the 3 demon beauties who were serving him on the sofa were directly killed on the spot. Black Mosquito, are you crazy? Do you have to freak out like this? I have already sent someone to pick a strong demon for you. Look at how anxious you are. Don't tell me you want me to serve you directly. Come on, I'm not a mosquito killer. Be careful, or I will kill you. Seeing that 3 of his 4 trusted subordinates had died in the blink of an eye, the remaining one had clearly been hit and was currently standing at the entrance in a daze. As for the 3 demonkin beauties, they had also died in an instant and couldn't be more dead. You rogue, damn it. Seeing Naibwa Mountain's current attire, Lee Mosquito's cheeks immediately turned red in shame and anger. She gritted her teeth and looked at him coldly. She was really a delicate and cute young woman. Hearing this, Naibwa Mountain widened his eyes as if he had seen a ghost. He was stunned for a few seconds, then he stuttered in disbelief. Are you really Black Mosquito? Don't you think you are bullying me when you say the word rogue? Could it be that you've met your true love? Which male mosquito is it? Chapter 2690. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Black Mosquito Unify. Who is it? Naboshin was indeed a super being in the middle stage of the black hole realm. After Yi Xian activated the perfect oscillation, his entire aura was perfectly concealed, and he did not sense anything. However, When he raised his hand and shot out the level 9 slave seal, Naboshan immediately noticed it. This abnormality finally made him realize that something was wrong. Previously, he thought that the mother black mosquito was angry because it was anxious. However, now that he found that there was an accomplice, the nature of the matter was obviously different. At the same time, his expression changed abruptly. He subconsciously wanted to activate the mother seal stored in his demon core. Since the black mosquito mother beast had already attacked him, then, if he did not use this mother seal, he would not be its opponent at all. Don't waste your energy. Your restriction mother seal is ineffective because the child seal has already been refined when I broke through to the late stage of the black hole realm. Seeing Naboshan's action at a glance, the Lee mosquito also acted pretentiously. How could it have refined the restriction child seal when it broke through to the late stage of the black hole realm? It was clearly because of Xianxia that it had broken through to the late stage of the black hole realm when the restriction child seal had automatically melted. However, at this time, its pretentiousness, coupled with the powerful pressure of a rank 7 black hole realm, was really effective. What? You broke through to the late stage? Naboshan's face immediately turned ashen. Not only did he not activate the restriction mother seal in his demon core, but he even ignored the level 9 slave seal on Xianxia's side. After all, no matter how great the threat from Xianxia was, how could it be compared to a supreme being in the late stage of the black hole realm? Therefore, at this moment, when Naboshan's mind was shaken, the inconspicuous level 9 slave seal landed directly on the back of his head and entered in an instant. Everything was settled now. An hour later, Two-Way, Ballet, and Wretched Mosquito Killer had brought all 110 Demonkin slaves to Mount Naibua's private territory. At this time, in this huge area, Xianxia was sitting cross-legged on a sofa, alone with his eyes closed. There were 3 people standing behind him. One was the mosquito, one was Naboshan, and the last was Naboshan's trusted butler. Now, the 3 of them were standing behind Xianxia. They were clearly acting like servants. Only the mosquito was a little more confident. Naboshan and his trusted butler were a little anxious. When this scene entered into the eyes of the 100-plus servants on the 4th floor that were herded in like sheep, they were terrified to the point they immediately knelt on the ground while their bodies trembled violently without end. Among them, there were close to 60 peerless demon beauties. When one looked at them all of a sudden, that scene was truly indescribable. It was also at this time that the only one left alive, the think tank of Mount Naibua, also arrived. He lowered his eyebrows and stood behind Xianxia's sofa without saying a word. Time passed slowly. Before they knew it, a whole day had gone by. During this entire day, the demon elites in the entire space quietly waited. Not a single one of them went to disturb Xianxia, and no one had the guts to do so. Right now, the entire Black Mosquito Bastion was under Xianxia's control. Other than the 100 or so Devil Cultivator jailers at the bottom and the 100 or so high-level Devil Cultivator servants on the 4th floor, the other Devil Cultivator experts had all become Xianxia's devil slaves. There were more than 2,000 of them, nearly 3,000 of them. As for the rest, they'd all turned into magic cores. After being decomposed by Xianxia's devouring system, they'd extracted the pure spiritual source energy. Either they'd already been absorbed by him, or they were still in the devouring system, waiting for him to absorb them. At this time, Xianxia was doing everything in his power to refine the slave seals. The 100 or so high-ranking demonkin servants on the 4th floor were all talents. Whether it was the food, the fine wine, or the reception of VIPs, they were all at a professional level. Most importantly, they were doing this kind of low-level work. Their cultivation was not low either. The 100 or so demonkin servants were all at the satellite realm, or even the planet realm. They were the 3rd and 4th realms. Even Xianxia would have to flee if he encountered them outside. But here, they were willing to serve the higher-ups and VIPs. Such talents were hard to find even if one held a lantern. Since Xianxia was plotting to take over the entire Black Mosquito Bastion and might not leave alone for a short time, he would try his best to delay the Demonkin and the 10 bastions stationed in the Graveyard Domain. He would look for an opportunity to leave the third universe. Therefore, it was inevitable that the higher-ups of the 10 bastions would interact with each other. Therefore, he couldn't kill these high-ranking Demonkin servants who could hold the fort. He could only subdue them. Otherwise, if the Black Mosquito Bastion didn't have the right people to hold the fort on certain occasions, they would definitely be exposed. In a little more than a day, Xianxia managed to refine the 100 or so third-level and fourth-level slave seals he needed. With his current strength, he wouldn't have been able to refine them so quickly. This time, it was because he knew the Black Mosquito Bastion had fallen into his hands that he had risked his life in excitement. After the 100 or so slave seals were used up, all the high-ranking Demonkin servants present were enslaved and became his own people. At this point, the entire Black Mosquito Bastion had become Xianxia's domain. Apart from the 100 or so Demonkin wardens on the first floor and the nearly 10,001 Luo Federation experts, Xianxia had 2,000-strong Demonkin troops on the second floor, all of whom were at the core realm. On the third floor, he had more than 200 Demonkin technical elites. Under the leadership of Tu Wei and Par, they were stationed in the machinery area and the warehouse area. Their strength was basically at the third level of the satellite realm. As for the fourth floor, in addition to Li Mosquito and the wretched Mosquito Slayer, he had Naboshin, who was overseeing the entire bastion, as well as the think tank Hong Ji and the butler Pilo. In addition, there were 30 Planet Realm personal guards and attendants. Of course, on the surface, they were Naboshin's attendants, but in reality, they were Xianxia's. In addition, he had 100 high-ranking servants on the fourth floor, as well as talents such as food, wine, and beautiful women. He had everything he needed. As far as Xian was concerned, although he was still the leader of the entire Black Mosquito Star Fortress in name, in reality, he was already in existence at the level of an emperor. All right, now that the Black Mosquito Bastion has been unified, it's time to take a look at the first floor of the Myriad Hells. After everything was settled, Xian suddenly thought of the green-bearded old man Lu Wenxuan and the group of Demonkin Warden brothers who had supported him from the beginning. Xian muttered to himself with a smile on his face. Chapter 2691. The rise of the ranking Listos, the notification of the devouring system, sounded out in his mind. Xian was completely stupefied. He was stunned on the spot. The Federation had broken through 10 million points. He was on a ranking list, ranked 8,999. Even now, hearing it with his own ears, he couldn't believe it. He wondered if he was dreaming. The Federation's ranking list was divided into the Celestial List, Terrestrial List, and Ranking List. The top 100 on the Celestial List, the top 1,000 on the Terrestrial List, and the top 10,000 on the Ranking List. Xian hadn't been on the Ranking List, otherwise the system would have notified him earlier. But now he was on the Ranking List, and he was in the top 9,000. This was definitely something that had never happened before. From what he knew, the Celestial and Terrestrial lists hadn't changed for many years. Even the ranking list of humans only swapped places with the last few hundred names. It was easy to understand. In order to enter the rankings, one had to accumulate federal contribution points. However, there were not many ways for the countless powerhouses of the Myriad Federation to obtain federal contribution points. Although killing demons was a very convenient way, no one had a way to determine the identity of the demons. Therefore, basically everyone's points were in a situation where they were slowly increasing. Small changes in the points ranking became the general trend. No one had suddenly shot up the ranking list. No one had been on the ranking list, then suddenly shot up. At most, they'd be in the bottom 10,000 or 9,999. Xian had shot into the top 9,000. That had never happened before. The reason Xian was able to do this was obviously because he'd seized control of the Black Mosquito Bastion. His interstellar mercenary card was tied to his identity in the Federation. It had been branded in his divine sense. Now that the Black Mosquito had been taken down, the interstellar mercenary card that was tied to his divine sense immediately captured the scene. Therefore, it sent out a weak and mysterious signal, which was captured by the Skyriver planet's superbrain. It confirmed his contribution and immediately awarded him Federation contribution points. This allowed him to break through more than half of the 10 million mark and enter the top 9,000 of the mortal list. The reason why Yixian was so surprised was because he had already ordered the Devouring system to turn off the system notifications of the change in the Federation's points when they were in the second level of the Demon Scout Cave. As mentioned before, killing an ordinary Demon Scout would give 1,000 contribution points to the Federation. Back when Yixian was on the second floor, every time he killed a monster, the Devouring system notification would ring in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to host. Your Federation contribution points have changed. Your current points. Ding! Congratulations, host. Your Federation contribution points. And so on. It would sound every once in a while. Later on, when Yixian was hunting in large numbers, it kept ringing in his mind. He couldn't get tired of it, so he took the initiative to order the Devouring system to turn off the notifications. Ever since then, Yixian hadn't heard any more notifications when he killed Demon Scouts, so he gradually forgot about this matter. However, in reality, his Federation contribution points had been increasing rapidly all this time. The Demon Scouts that had been killed by Buck and the other demon slaves had also been given to Yixian after their brains had been dissected. Then, Yixian had tossed them to the Devouring system for analysis, so they had also been counted. At the same time, when he took Buck and the other 2,000 Demon Scouts as his slaves, they were also captured by the Galactic Soldier imprinted in his consciousness, acknowledged and scored. Killing an ordinary Demon Dweller Scout was 1,000 points. Subduing an ordinary Demon Scout was worth 2,000 points, which was double the amount. It was easy to determine this because the spirit source core in Yixian's mind was connected to the demon slaves. The Galactic Soldier card imprinted in his consciousness was used to confirm this. What Yixian didn't know was that when he had subdued the Black Mosquito Mother, his Federation contribution points had already reached the 10 million mark. After all, it was a high-level enemy at the Black Hole Realm. Killing it was already hard enough, let alone subduing it. In addition to the Mountain Ibwa that had been subdued, as well as the entire Black Mosquito Star Fortress. The current Yixian had more than 19 million contribution points, and he was about to reach 20 million. Of course, all of this had been sent out through some mysterious function of the Galactic Soldier card imprinted in his consciousness. It was like a simple radio frequency signal that had been received and verified by the galactic supercomputer on the nearest administrative planet. However, as for the specific situation, such as how Yixian had done all this, how he had obtained his contribution points, and so on, the simple signal that had been sent out wouldn't reveal any of this information. Furthermore, this kind of Galactic Soldier card would never make any mistakes. This was publicly known because the Federation Identity Imprint and the Federation Galactic Soldier card were all issued by the Immortal-grade Galactic Supercomputer on the Imperial Capital Star of the Everlasting Dynasty. The Immortal-grade Galactic Supercomputer's ability was enough to cover the entire Universe 3. How could it make such a trivial mistake? Because of this, when the fact that Yixian had entered the top 9,000 on the human ranking list was discovered, the entire Skyriver planet, and even the other administrative planets of the Imperial Capital Star were in an uproar. However, no one doubted the authenticity of this matter. The Wan Luo Federation's Federation Contribution Points ranking list was displayed in real time on all the administrative planets of the Federation. This even included Universe 2, which was not part of the human race. During this time, the ranking list displayed on some of the Federation's races was only slightly delayed. In other words, at this moment, Yixian's name had become famous in the entire Wan Luo Federation. No one knew what kind of chaos was happening on the administrative planets in the distant star fields, but on the nearest administrative planet, the Sky River Star, it was already a mess. The first person to discover this was an ordinary galactic soldier. On one side of the Sky River Planet's Federation office hall, there was a point exchange hall. All the treasures here could only be exchanged with Federation contribution points. In the center of the hall was the data of the Heaven, Earth, and Human ranking list. When Yixian's name and his Galactic Soldier serial number appeared on the Human ranking list, a large string of data below fluctuated and changed. A Galactic Soldier who was looking up was dumbfounded on the spot. After a long time, This person raised his hand and rubbed his eyes. The string of data that was reflected in his line of sight had not changed at all. In an instant, his expression changed drastically. Human ranking list. 8,999. Yixian, Galactic Soldier, serial number. The 131488080. Current Federation contribution points. 198765430. Chapter 2692. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Uproar. The news quickly spread throughout the entire Heavenly River planet. The entire administrative planet was on the verge of exploding. Interstellar Mercenary Serial Number. The 131488080. This was clearly an interstellar mercenary serial number that had just been registered on the Heavenly River planet not long ago. The TH in front was the abbreviation of the Heavenly River planet, and the lowercase a at the back represented this year's year number. The number represented the serial number that had been registered on the Heavenly River planet this year. Serial number 131488080 was clearly just a few months ago. An interstellar mercenary serial number that had just been registered a few months ago had actually earned nearly 20 million Federation contribution points in the blink of an eye. This was simply infuriating. It was precisely because of this that some people suspected that he had killed D.E. of the Tianji clan. Otherwise, none of this could be explained. Of course, this kind of suspicion was just a passing remark. It was even more unlikely that anyone would take it seriously. D.E. of the Tianji clan couldn't possibly be worth just a few Federation contribution points. He was worth at least tens of billions. D*M in it. D*M in it. How did this brat do it? What on earth happened to him? When the news reached the Star-Lord's mansion, Bai Zhengjun was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He paced back and forth, muttering these words under his breath. Someone who had entered the Federation rankings, even if it was just the human ranking list, was no longer someone he could afford to offend. After all, the heaven, earth, and human rankings list could be seen by the entire Wanluo Federation. Perhaps some big shot from the Everlasting Dynasty was paying attention to this matter at this moment. If this brat had quietly entered the 10,000th or 999th place, it would have been fine. However, this brat had suddenly charged into the top 9,000, trampling over more than 1,000 veteran prodigies of the Federation. It was absolutely impossible that this had not attracted the attention of the big shots in the Imperial Capital Star, or even the Imperial Capital Star. Therefore, Bai Zhengjun was panicking. He had a feeling that once Yixian officially came into contact with the Federation, then in the future, his good son, who was an important official on the Heavenly Dust Star of the Empire, would no longer be able to control Yixian. It just so happened that the enmity between the two of them was irreconcilable. Even an idiot would know what this meant. Similarly, in the Federation garrison headquarters on the Heavenly River planet, Zhao Long, the military leader of this administrative planet, was also staring blankly at the big screen in front of him that was displaying the human list rankings. After a long time, Zhao Long shook his head bitterly and muttered to himself, "Fortunately, I didn't find the opportunity to make a move back then. At least I didn't offend this guy. Tisk, TSK, TSK. Based on the things that this guy has done before and after, it would be fine if it was just one, but all of them are so shocking. How can this be explained by coincidence? There's a type of person who is destined to soar into the sky. The key is whether or not you can see the torch before he becomes rich. So what if we take a gamble this time? I, Zhao Long, will bet on this little freak. If the upper echelons of the Heavenly River planet were only surging with undercurrents regarding this matter, then in the Federation Hall of the Heavenly River planet, there was already an uproar. A guy who had just registered as an interstellar mercenary in the Federation Hall of the Heavenly River planet had actually obtained nearly 20 million contribution points in just a few months and rushed into the human list. Moreover, he had entered the top 9,000 as soon as he entered the human list. TSK, TSK, TSK. All of this was like a dream, and it made everyone excited. Brothers, do you see that? Nothing is impossible in this world. Who knows if the next person to enter the human list won't be one of us? Team up, team up. Our team already has 6 interstellar mercenaries at the 7th level of the core state, and we will soon enter the depths of the graveyard domain. Our brother 8080 is only at the 8th level of the core state. Brothers, let's not give in. Only by going out will we have a chance. It's me. It's me, you know? Interstellar mercenary number 8080 is me, the one in front of me. A middle-aged interstellar mercenary was the most agitated. Heavens, I still remember that scene. Little brother 8080 was ranked just 1 spot ahead of me. I missed a good opportunity. If I had gotten this auspicious, I might have been the one to enter the human ranking board. Tisk. What's wrong with this guy? A series of disdainful voices sounded around him. In the distance, 3 people stared blankly at the human list of the Federation contribution points with complicated expressions. There are no words to describe the expressions on their faces. One of them was the interstellar pirate He Luoying. This person had even come into close contact with Yi Xian. If it weren't for the threat of Bai Zhengying's warship, he would have attacked back then. But now, after seeing Yi Xian enter the human list with his own eyes, He Luoying's expression was twisted and almost ferocious. He looked like he was possessed and kept muttering to himself. A mistake. A huge mistake. This kid must have had a great opportunity after he escaped that day. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to achieve what he has today. If this old man had been able to take him down that day, perhaps all of this would have fallen into this old man's hands. This is a great opportunity, but in a moment of carelessness, it fell to him. This old man can't accept it, but it doesn't matter. With nearly 20 million Federation contribution points, this old man doesn't believe that this kid can hold back and not come to exchange for them. When the time comes, as long as he comes, all of his secrets will become this noble one's spoils of war. After all, he's just a star core state ant. As long as this noble one makes a detailed plan, everything about him will fall into this noble one's calculations. Miss, do you think this Yi Xian is the guy we met back then? But why do I feel like all of this is so unreal? In another area, Lu Luo had a blank expression on her face. She turned her head to look at Xianyuan Xing, who was beside her, with a trace of disbelief on her face. If this Yi Xian is the guy we saw back then what kind of existence did he encounter back then? Who could have given him such a terrifying opportunity? In the blink of an eye, he had nearly 20 million Federation contribution points. Even you don't have that many right now, miss. Without a doubt, the person we met that day was Yi Xian. Furthermore, the space fortress that took him away didn't belong to our myriad Luo Federation. Instead, it belonged to the heavenly fate race in the domain of the fallen stars. At this point, Xianyuan Xing, whose eyes were blurred, suddenly sighed softly. That guy, what exactly did he encounter? How did he do it? How did he manage to achieve such a feat in the celestial fate race's base camp in the human world? All of this is like a dream. What a strange person. What? Miss, you mean to say that guy, he actually snuck into the headquarters of the Tianji clan's demon scouts and even earned such a huge amount of Federation contribution points? Luluo sucked in a breath of cold air, her face filled with shock and disbelief. But is this possible? Chapter 2693. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, the sword spirit of the demon blood sword, not to mention the heavenly river star. Even Yi Xian himself had a face full of shock. He was stunned for a long time before he finally regained his senses. 20 million? Close to 20 million? Not long ago, he was still looking up at 10 million Federation contribution points. How unattainable it was. Now, in the blink of an eye, it was close to 20 million. A huge surprise surged into Yi Xian's heart. He couldn't wait to fly back to the Sky River planet immediately and use 10 million Federation contribution points to exchange for a tube of level 9 genetic cultivation fluid first. As long as he got his hands on the level 9 genetic cultivation fluid, the fragment of the immortal grade super brain in his hand would most likely be revived in the near future. By then, Yi Xian would have an independent star grade communication system. As long as he had enough energy, he could invade the level 1 star network at any time. He could even invade the Imperial Capital Planet and the Imperial Capital Planet's network at will and obtain a large amount of information. Searching for the source of devouring would be twice the work with half the effort. The Skyriver planet should be in chaos now. This is not a small problem. With a flash of inspiration in his mind, Yixian immediately realized the current situation. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he clenched his fists. But it doesn't matter. It's just a small Skyriver planet. Even if the space pirates Luoying and Xiaolong are both Black Hole Realm Masters, I now have the Mother Black Mosquito Beast and Mount Naibwa, who are also two supreme Black Hole Realm Masters. Besides, although Xiaolong has a 5-kilometer-long cosmic cloud state space fortress, the Black Mosquito ship is not inferior to it. In fact, it is even better. This is a cosmic river state space fortress with a diameter of 10,000 meters. Now that I'm on the Federation contribution point ranking list, even if I swaggered into the Skyriver planet to exchange for points, neither Zhao Long nor Bai Jinjun would dare to do anything to me. That would incur the wrath of the public. At most, they would wait for me to leave the Skyriver planet before making a move. At that time, I will have the protection of the Black Mosquito ship and 2 Black Hole Realm powerhouses. This time, I don't even need to flee. While muttering to himself, Yixian could not help but feel relieved. However, now was not the time to immediately return to Skyriver Star to start all this. Before setting off, there were still many things to do. First of all, it was personal strength. He immediately took out the corpses of those high-level Demonkin elites that he had kept in his undying world. Following which, he raised the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword. Buzz. As soon as this sword appeared, it seemed to have smelled a large amount of high-grade flesh and blood essence, and it actually let out a cheerful buzzing sound. This was clearly the rhythm that the sword spirit in the sword was about to take shape, and this sword was about to give birth to intelligence. Anticipation grew in Yixian's heart. Without any hesitation, he activated the demonic Blood Star Essence Sword and started killing the high-rank elite Demonkin corpses. Buzz! Buzz! The cheerful buzzing sound continued to ring out, and the large number of Demonkin corpses that had been piled up into a small mountain rapidly withered. In the blink of an eye, they had shrunk by half, becoming a pile of bones. At this moment, Yixian's Devil Blood Star Essence Sword broke free from Yixian's control and began to circle around the 4th floor of the Black Mosquito ship on its own. From time to time, it would let out a cheerful buzzing sound. In this regard, Yixian was not anxious and allowed it to play around. At this moment, the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword gave him the feeling of a child that had just been born with self-awareness. It was mischievous and active, but there was a clear feeling of flesh and blood between it and his divine sense. Yixian could completely feel the fluctuations of consciousness of the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword. After all, this offensive magic treasure had been refined by him from the beginning. Master, I am the Devil Blood. I have awakened. Sure enough, after circling around happily, a childish voice appeared in Yixian's mind. It was the consciousness of the sword spirit of the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword. This little guy was quite clever. He gave himself a name, Devil Blood. However, Yixian quite liked this name. He could vaguely feel a domineering and murderous intent. As an offensive magic treasure, it should have such a name. As the voice sounded in his mind, the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword that had been circling around outside for a long time seemed to be a little tired. It turned into a ray of light and directly rushed towards Yixian. Although it was a killing treasure that had evolved to the legendary level, it was after all refined by Yixian. Even the sword's spirit bred in it took the initiative to recognize Yixian as its master. In this case, it couldn't hurt Yixian. With a flash of blood-colored light, the Devil Blood Star Essence Sword directly charged into Yixian's body. As for the latter, with a wave of his hand, he stored the mountain-like pile of elite devil cultivator skeletons into the undying world within his body. After doing all this, Yixian glanced around at the demon slaves present. After pondering for a while, he said to the wretched mosquito butcher, "You go down and call Barker, Guihai Idao, and Sanqing you up. As for the other demon slaves and servants, all of them can leave." Soon, the wretched mosquito butcher turned around and left. The other servants and demon slaves in the hall all retreated quietly. The entire hall suddenly became empty. Only Yixian sat alone on the sofa. The others, such as Li Mosquito and Nibel Mountain, stood on the side with their hands behind their backs. Although the cultivation of the two of them was much stronger than the other demon slaves, in front of Yixian, their identity was the same as the other demon powerhouses. They were just demon slaves. In their consciousness, there was only the thought of serving Yixian as their master. There was no other consciousness of strength. Soon, Barker, Guihai Dao, and Xianxia arrived. As soon as Barker arrived, he handed over a large number of demon cores to Yixian. He also said that there were a large number of demon scout corpses piled up below. These were the products of the demon slaves that returned in recent days. All right, from now on, there's no need to kill all the demon scouts that returned. Guard them. When I have time, I'll subdue them. After taking the demon cores, Yixian directly threw them to the devouring system to decompose and extract the demon's spirit origin power. After doing all this, he glanced at the demon slaves present before continuing. Now, I'll assign your roles and clarify your responsibilities. The second floor below is still under Barker's command. The commanders of the 2,000-man demon slave brigades are still Guihai Dao and Xianxia. In addition, the other demon scouts that return one after another are slowly forming the 3rd brigade. In addition, all the demon slaves don't have to go out to mine for star cores or other things. On the contrary, the cultivation resources in the 3rd floor's warehouse are to be fully opened. All the demon slaves are to raise their cultivation as soon as possible. Chapter 2694. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations refining the Fortress Superbrain. In addition to the Demon's Cave abode area on the 2nd level, the manager of the 3rd level is also Barker. At this point, Yixian glanced at the wretched mosquito killer, Two-Wei, and Baller. Then, he said, Two-Wei and Baller will still be the manager and assistant manager of the 3rd level's machinery area. If the machinery area needs more manpower, you can apply to Barker and choose from the demon slaves on the 2nd level below. As for the wretched mosquito killer, you will be in charge of the 3rd level's warehouse area. Of course, it will be under Barker's command. You only need to report to Barker and be responsible for the supplies there. As for the living area, except for the higher-ups, who can each have a villa, all the other demon slaves will be converted into apartments. From now on, in my Battlestar, there will be no such thing as an elite or a poor class. The only difference is the level of your position and the weight of your responsibilities. As for the 4th level, I will personally oversee it. Naboshin and Li Mosquito will be my guards. The think tank, Nan Huizi, will be in charge of the Artificial Intelligence Center. The housekeeper, Bang Benba, will be in charge of the daily operations of the entire 4th level. This refers to normal circumstances. If the higher-ups of other Battlestars come, Li Mosquito and I will temporarily avoid them. Naboshin will resume his position as the captain. Everything will go according to the previous pattern. In short, we have a lot of things to do now. The entire Black Mosquito ship needs to improve its overall strength as soon as possible. At this point, Yixian seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He turned to look at the housekeeper of the 4th level, Bang Benba, and instructed, "All right, you and Nan Huizi go to the Artificial Intelligence Center and send a notice to the 1st level of the 10,000 hells below. Say, the captain's special envoy will be going down to patrol in the next few days." At this moment, the system notification sounded in his mind. Ding! Reminder to the host. If you want to completely control the Black Mosquito ship, you need to refine the Artificial Intelligence Center's Starry Sky Superbrain. Then, you'll be able to control the entire Battlestar. Hearing this, Yixian couldn't help but be stunned. Subsequently, he withdrew his consciousness and checked the devouring system for the specific situation. After a short while, Yixian finally understood everything. Unlike the Demonkin, they didn't have a primordial spirit or consciousness. They couldn't refine Bastion's superbrain like they could refine a relic. Under these circumstances, if a Bastion needed to attack, defend, or even self-destruct, it had to be manually entered from the fourth floor's AI. But Xian was different. In fact, any human cultivator could do the same, and that was to refine the Space Fortress's superbrain. That way, the Space Fortress would be equivalent to one's own treasure and could even be stored inside one's body. This was because the super brain of a bastion was bound to the bastion as soon as it was built. It couldn't be swapped out and couldn't be separated. Therefore, when the super brain of a bastion was refined, it was the same as refining the entire bastion. With Xian's current strength, he was indeed unable to absorb a starry sky level expert into his body. However, after refining the Space Fortress, this would become a reality, because what he absorbed into his body was a relic he had refined himself. Of course, even if it was a small private warship, it was still a magic treasure that he could refine. However, he couldn't put a starry sky powerhouse into a small private warship and absorb them into his body. The reason why the Bastion was able to achieve this was because it was different from small private battleships. It used space folding technology, and when the starry sky experts within the Bastion were absorbed into Xian's body along with the Bastion, they actually didn't have anything to do with Xian himself. The folded space inside made all of this a reality. As mentioned before, the superbrain was a mysterious entity that existed between matter and life. It was like the Tai Sui on Earth. It was a mysterious half-life form that was rarely seen even in the vast expanse of space. A Bastion's superbrain couldn't compare to the superbrain of a planet like Skyriver. They weren't even on the same level. The former could only control a single Bastion, while the latter could control an entire planet. The difference was obvious, but it was also because of this that Xian was able to refine the superbrain with ease. In half a day's time, he'd completely refined the superbrain in the Black Mosquito Bastion's 4th level. At last, Xian's system beeped in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The superbrain that has refined the Black Mosquito Bastion will now be able to command the entire bastion with a single thought. Phew! Everything's done. From now on, Xian had the authority to pass through any portal he wished. He also had the right to selectively or comprehensively grant this authority to anyone he wished. There's one last thing I need to do. Once that's done, I should go down to the 1st level of the Cataclysm and see if Old Man Lu is still alive. Muttering to himself, Xian turned and walked toward the portal that led to the 3rd level. Through there, he would reach the 2nd floor of the Demonic Dweller Cave, then use the Demonic Bloodstar Essence sword to collect all the corpses of the demonic dwellers. After that, the returning Black Mosquito Bastion would no longer be slaughtered but subdued. After all, this place was now Xian's main base. Less than 3,000 of the original 10,000 demon scouts were now a problem. Even if he couldn't kill the returning demon cultivator scouts, once everything was on the right track, Xian would still have to think of a way to capture the other demon cultivator scouts. Even if he couldn't fill up the original 10,000 or so, he'd have to at least make up half of them. Of course, Lanju's focus was on the elite. The other bastions used the demonkin scouts as laborers. They were forced to work in the fields, mining for planetary cores and other rare minerals. They were only given a tiny bit of cultivation resources. But Xian was different. He'd ordered that none of his slaves be allowed to leave the bastion, and the supply of the black ores used to cultivate psychic power was open to them. There was only one request, and that was for all the demon slaves to start raising their cultivation base at full speed from now on. Chapter 2695. Another uproar. After Xian had refined the superbrain on the 4th floor of the Black Mosquito Bastion, the data on the human ranking of the Federation contribution points rankings changed again in the Federation Affairs Hall, located on all the administrative planets of the Myriad Federation. Human ranking, 7,998. Xian, Interstellar Mercenary Serial Number, the 131488080. Current Federation contribution points, 298765430. In the blink of an eye, Xian's federal contribution points had risen by another 10 million points. As for his ranking, it had gone from the top 9,000 to the top 8,000, and all of a sudden, it had risen by 1,000. After all, the difference in Federation contribution points between the last 5,000 people on the human ranking was only a few hundred or a few thousand. Yi Xian's sudden increase of 10 million points to the Federation contribution points was nothing out of the ordinary. Naturally, the reason for all this was related to his refinement of the superbrain. The Celestial Legacy clan had many experts from slave races who had entered the graveyard domain through the natural wormholes in the depths of the graveyard domain, which separated the first universe from the third universe. There were even a few Celestial Legacy clansmen among them. However, only the Demonkin had truly taken on a large scale. After all, the Demonkin's characteristics were obvious. As long as they entered the graveyard domain, they could do whatever they wanted without any need to hide. Even so, the Demonkin had only sent 10 bastions into the domain. Each of these bastions could provide the Celestial Legacy clan with countless planetary cores and rare minerals every year. It was as if the Demonkin had taken resources from human territory and used them against the humans. Therefore, if a bastion was converted into Federation contribution points, it would be absolutely terrifying. Yi Xian had only taken the Black Mosquito Bastion, which was equivalent to winning a battle. He had already received a corresponding amount of Federation contribution points for this. However, capturing them was one thing, and refining them for one's own use was another. It was equivalent to capturing a captive and directly instigating the captive. The value was completely different. Therefore, after Yi Xian successfully turned the Black Mosquito into Yi Xian's personal magical equipment, he was awarded 10 million contribution points of the Federation again. In fact, he still had a way to obtain a large number of Federation points, and this way was already in his hands. It was just that Yi Xian had not realized it yet. There was no doubt that, as he discovered this pathway, he would be able to obtain even more Federation contribution points. When that time came, Yi Xian would probably be shocked silly. As he received another 10 million Federation contribution points, Yi Xian was stunned once again. He muttered to himself, F***CK? 10 million? That's another bottle of level 9 gene cultivation fluid. I wonder, how many bottles are there in the Federation's exchange warehouse? Following Yi Xian's muttering, the Skyriver planet was in an uproar once again. The Skyriver Planet Federation Affairs Hall was already filled with people. Everyone had a fanatical look on their faces. Their gazes were all gathered on the mercenary's serial number, which ended with the lucky number 8080. Thunderous cheers resounded. At this moment, Yi Xian had become a legend. A small interstellar mercenary in the core state had rushed into the top 8,000 in less than half a day after breaking into the top 9,000 of the ranking list of young masters, gaining 10 million contribution points of the Federation contribution points in one go. Everyone was guessing. This interstellar mercenary called Yi Xian. What exactly did he do? Bai Zhengjun, Zhao Long, He Luoing, Luo Luo, and the master and servant of the Purplish Warbler were all wondering the same thing. Even Master Su and the others, who had led the fleet of space fortresses from the Skydust planet to the black hole area to deal with the small black hole, were dumbfounded. He muttered to himself, "This lucky bastard. What did he do?" Aside from the human camp, the highest commander the Heavenly Legacy clan had sent to the Graveyard Star Zone at the edge of the third universe, Ba Chai, a black hole realm level 9 expert, was also furious. Among the 10 space fortresses of the Demon Scouts, the Black Wind had the most powerful guardian beast. The guardian beast of the Black Wind was a Black Wind beast, which was at the 8th level of the black hole realm. Therefore, the Black Wind was also the flagship of the 10 space fortresses. Ba Chai, as the leader, was on the Black Wind. At this moment, at the center of the hall on the 4th floor of the Black Wind, the human ranking of the 1,000 Luo Federation contribution points was displayed on a huge virtual screen. As the leader of the Demon Scouts that the Tianji clan had sent to the third universe of the human race, Ba Chai often paid attention to the 3 rankings. The reason he was furious was because Yi Xian had suddenly obtained more than 10 million Federation contribution points twice in a row and then soared up the human ranking. It should be noted that every Federation contribution point represented a loss for the Tianji clan. With the strength of the human race, and even the myriad Luo Federation, it was impossible for them to invade the First Universe, the headquarters of the Heavenly Legacy race. In fact, this guy called Xian was only an ant at the Starcore realm. He didn't even have the qualifications to enter the natural wormhole in the depths of the Graveyard Domain. Since that was the case, the nearly 30 million Federation contribution points that he had earned were clearly obtained in the Graveyard Starfield. However, none of this made sense. Unless a few higher-ups of the Tianji clan had coincidentally come here, encountered a spatial storm, and were on the verge of death, then ran into this kid and picked up a ready-made reward. Otherwise, how could a puny Starcore realm ant like him earn nearly 30 million Federation contribution points in such a short time? Damn it. Can someone tell me what went wrong? How'd that kid do it? Did he steal one of this daddy's space fortresses? What a joke. With a ferocious expression, Ba Chai smashed the tea table beside him into pieces and ordered, "Immediately notify the other 9 space fortresses and order all the demon scouts to search with all their might. We must find the truth of this matter. We must find this little bastard called Yi Xian for this daddy." Yes. Beside him, a trusted Star Realm steward accepted the leader's order and hurriedly went to relay the order. At this moment, Ba Chai would never have guessed that what he thought was the most impossible thing was actually the truth. The reason Yi Xian had been able to earn nearly 30 million Federation contribution points in such a short time was indeed because he had stolen a space fortress from him without anyone noticing. Moreover, this kind of rapid increase in contribution points was clearly not the end. This was only the beginning. An even more sensational storm would soon unfold. Chapter 2696. Inspecting Myriad Prison before Yi Xian left, he handed over the Myriad Heaven Prison's prison guards to 2 people called Xianxia and Mei Tang. These 2 fellows were both at the 4th level of the Starcore realm, and were considered in the upper echelons of the 100 over prison guards. During this period of time, the entire prison guards of the Myriad Heaven Prison were under the command of the 2 of them. Although they couldn't communicate with the top of Myriad Prison, they could send orders to the bottom of Myriad Prison through the AI control center on the 4th floor. Nan Huizi, the only remaining think tank of the Black Mosquito Bastion, followed Yi Xian's orders and passed down the order for the captain to inspect the bottom floor of Myriad Prison. The more than 100 Myriad Prison wardens immediately went into an uproar. All the wardens were nervous. Many people even speculated that something had happened to the new warden commander, Yi Xian. Otherwise, why would Naibu Shan, as the controller of the entire Black Mosquito Bastion, suddenly want to inspect the bottom floor? It must be known that this kind of situation had never happened in the past few decades. Now that it had suddenly appeared, the reason was obviously not ordinary. With this thought in mind, Xianxia and Mei Tang immediately took action. First, they gathered all the wardens and tidied up their discipline. Then, they reorganized the patrol squads. All the Demonkin wardens were divided into 10 squads, 2 shifts. At any time, there were 5 patrol squads patrolling the vast Myriad Prison outside. Everything was in order and revealed a tense atmosphere. As the 5 patrol squads patrolled the outside at all times, the news at the highest level of the entire Black Mosquito Bastion was about to come down for an inspection quickly spread among the nearly 10,000 Federation prisoners in this area. The green-bearded old man, Lu Wenxuan, seemed to have guessed something and sighed. Alas, it seems that stupid boy still hasn't escaped. Even the highest level of the entire bastion is going to come down for an inspection. This is clearly a reorganization. I'm afraid they'll catch a few examples to set an example for others. What a pity. As Lu Wenxuan's sigh of regret spread out, a wave of curses immediately sounded in response. Old man Lu, you're still feeling sorry for that boy? We've all been implicated by him. This time, Naibu Shan is coming in person. I'm afraid many people will be unlucky. This is clearly because he didn't manage to escape and leaked his whereabouts. Yes or no, I'm afraid that the few of us who are closer to its cage are going to be in trouble this time. We clearly found out that the kid had escaped, but we didn't report it. Mount Naibua is most likely going to attack us. If I had known that this would happen, I would have exposed his identity in front of those prison guards. At least I could have avoided today's calamity. Sigh, to think that I placed my hopes on that brat. Who would have thought that he would be so heartless? Not only did he escape by himself, he even failed and implicated all of us. Well, you've been thinking of reporting it all this time? It's not too late for you to have such thoughts. You still have a chance now. Without waiting for the surrounding complaints to die down, Yixian's cold laughter rang out. He had refined the starry sky super brain, which was the intelligence center of the entire Black Mosquito Bastion. With a thought, he could know the movements in any corner of the entire Black Mosquito Bastion. At the same time, his voice could be transmitted to any area in an instant. At this moment, as Yixian's voice rang out in the cataclysm, his figure stepped out of the black light film of the space door. Following closely behind were Li Mosquito, Naibuishan, Barker, and the wretched mosquito killer. Boss! Boss! Seeing Yixian appear, Xianxia and Mei Tang almost dropped their eyes to the ground. They stuttered, and their faces were full of shock. All of this was too strange. The entire bastion's leader, Naibuishan, was following behind Yixian like a follower. Even though they saw this scene with their own eyes, they couldn't believe it at all. At this time, they suspected that they were dreaming. What? Are you so disappointed to see that I'm still alive? Yixian laughed inwardly, but his face immediately darkened. How could it be? Ha ha! Boss, you're awesome, my brother. Yes or no, all of this is like a dream. If we knew it was you who was coming down, we wouldn't have been so nervous. We would have just done what we were supposed to do. You scared us. Xianxia and Mei Tang immediately grinned. Although they didn't know how Yixian did it, the fact was in front of them. Naibuishan was following behind, and it was obvious that he was controlled by Yixian. This situation made them feel very good. As demon prison guards who were sent to the lowest level, it was obviously impossible to say that they didn't have any complaints about Naibuishan. Hearing these two guys' words, Yixian also grinned, and his heart suddenly relaxed. In fact, he'd been hesitant about whether or not to use the slave seal on the 100 or so prison guards below. For Yixian, it was a simple matter, and they didn't even have a chance to resist. But if he really did so, Yixian would bear a grudge in his heart. Although at first he disguised himself as a demon and mixed in with these prison guards, it was undeniable that they really did treat him as a brother. When Yixian wanted to rebel against the original prison guard commander, they'd even supported him. Under these circumstances, if Yixian also took the 100 or so prison guards as his slaves, it would have some effect on his Dao heart. Therefore, Yixian had already made plans before coming here. If they were terrified after meeting with him and didn't feel the same as before, then he'd plant the slave seal. After all, they were already at odds, and it was only a matter of time. But if these prison guards were still the same as before, there was no need to rush. If there really was a change in the future, then he'd deal with them. In this Black Mosquito Bastion, the 100 or so prison guards really couldn't make any waves. Let's go. Come with me to stroll around Myriad Prison. Previously, I promised an old friend that I would return his freedom. Today, it's time to fulfill that promise. Nodding to Xianxia and Mei Tang, Yixian walked towards Old Man Du's cage as he spoke. The two of them exchanged a look and immediately shouted loudly. They each led dozens of prison guards and trotted forward to open up a path ahead. The demons who could serve as prison guards in Myriad Prison were all intelligent people, and naturally could see the situation clearly. Yixian's attitude reassured them, and now they only wanted to perform well. As for the matters of the higher-ups, it had nothing to do with them. They only knew that their brother was on a meteoric rise. After a short while, Yixian stopped in front of Old Man Du's cage and grinned at the completely dumbfounded Du Wenxuan. Old Man Du, this he has only come today to fulfill his promise. You can now swagger away at any time. Chapter 2697. Translator. Hinyi Translations Editor. Hinyi Translations caught between a rock and a hard place. You brat, you can actually control the cages of Myriad Cataclysmic Prison? As all the cage pillars around him were retracted and disappeared, his body merged with the outside world. He didn't even need to take a step before he directly broke free from the shackles of the cage. The green-bearded old man, Lu Wenxuan, who instantly regained his freedom, was immediately stunned. He looked at Yi Xian in a daze and asked subconsciously, but his mind was full of questions. "Oh, I hit it off with Brother Naboshan at first sight. He didn't have a gift to give me, so he gave me this black mosquito bastion." Yi Xian blinked his eyes at old man Lu, then grinned and said, "Since the entire space fortress is mine, what's so strange about controlling a cage? In fact, as long as I want to, I can make all these cages disappear with a thought, and the entire myriad cataclysmic prison will become a flat and open land." He wasn't bragging. Yi Xian could really do it, and it only took a thought. If he said this before, no one would believe him. Even the green-bearded old man, Lu Wenxuan, would roll his eyes without hesitation. But now, with a living fact in front of them, coupled with a strong desire to live, the other Federation powerhouses in the other cages immediately shouted excitedly. They were so emotional that it was as if they were crying and shouting for death. The entire myriad cataclysmic prison instantly turned into a market. "Brother, my blood brother, please save me. I gave you a small space box before." Me too, me too. This old man is quite rich. "Brother Yi Xian, I'll give you half of it. Just treat me like a fart and let me go." "Ha ha. I didn't expect such a hero to appear in our human race. Fellow Yi, this old man thinks highly of you. We hit it off at first sight. Why don't you let me out, and we could drink 3 cups of wine first?" F***ck off, you big liar. If you want to ask for help, will you die? You're so pretentious. Ahem, fellow Yi, we're all elites of the human race. We should be friendly and help each other. Please, can you open the door first? Yi Xian frowned as he listened to the clamor. He immediately shot a glance at Xianxia and Mei Tang. The two of them understood, and their expressions darkened as they walked to the nearest cage. "You're the one who's shouting the loudest. What punishment do you deserve for disturbing the leader? What's the point of wasting time with him? He's probably itching for a beating. Just let him feel comfortable." As the two of them spoke, they looked at each other and directly activated the restrictions of the cage. A dark blue lightning flashed, and a huge blue arc of lightning struck down from the top of the center of the cage. The guy in the cage, who had just said that he was close friends with Yi Xian at first sight and wanted to drink 3 cups of wine, was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. His entire body collapsed to the ground. For a moment, there was complete silence. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and stared blankly at Yi Xian. Their entire body felt uncomfortable. "Ahem, what are you guys doing? How can you abuse torture? Our Wan Luo hell needs to be civilized in the future." Yi Xian coughed twice, then looked around. He cupped his hands at the cages around him and said loudly, "Everyone, don't worry. This kind of thing will never happen again. We're all fellow Federation citizens. I will restrain them and make sure they don't use torture again. Although all of you cursed me before, I've always been an open-minded person. Seeing that we're all fellow Federation citizens, I'll still help you fight for this little bit of benefit." In other words, it was clear that he would continue to lock them up, and he had no intention of letting them go at all. The people in the cages around were not fools. Their faces were gloomy, and their eyes were rolling around. They all began to think of ways to escape. It was also at this time that the system notification of the devouring system sounded in Yi Xian's mind again without warning. "Ding! Congratulations, host. You've obtained 10,000 Federation contribution points. Ranking breakthrough. Current points, 298865430. Current ranking, 7997 on the human list." What was going on? Yi Xian was stunned. He hadn't done anything just now. He had just casually boasted. Could it be that boasting would give him Federation contribution points? Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? This thought flashed through Yi Xian's mind. He was stunned for a few seconds before he realized what had happened. Besides boasting, he had also done something else, which was to release the green-bearded old man, Lu Wenxuan. Obviously, the reason why he had suddenly obtained 10,000 Federation contribution points was related to this. Lu Wenxuan was an array master of the Wan Luo Federation's human race. His cultivation level was also at the star grade, the 5th major realm. If he was captured by the demons, it would definitely be a great loss to the Wan Luo Federation. Yi Xian had released him, which was obviously a good thing for the Wan Luo Federation. That was why he had obtained 10,000 Federation contribution points. Yi Xian's eyes lit up when he realized this. He subconsciously glanced at the cages in the distance. He was so excited that he almost couldn't control himself. More than 10,000 Federation prisoners. Based on the situation just now. As long as he put away the pillars of the cages with a thought, the Star Mercenary card that was tied to the Federation identification card on his primordial spirit would automatically recognize that he had saved a Federation powerhouse. Even though not every one of them was as valuable as the green-bearded old man, Lu Wenxuan, who was worth 10,000 Federation contribution points, the key was that there were many of them. 5,000 contribution points per person would be equivalent to 50 million points. That was equivalent to 5 tubes of level 9 gene cultivation fluid. More importantly, this huge amount of Federation contribution points didn't just come out of nowhere. While obtaining these Federation contribution points, Yi Xian could also obtain a huge amount of cultivation resources and various treasures. Why? Was there even a need to ask? These guys didn't know that Yi Xian would be able to obtain such benefits. Therefore, if they wanted to escape, they would have to take out at least 70 to 80% of the cultivation resources and treasures in their bodies, even if they didn't completely rob them, right? Otherwise, did they really think that I was doing a good deed like Lei Feng? However, after a moment of inexplicable excitement, Yi Xian quickly calmed down. This matter was a little inappropriate. It wasn't that he didn't want to release the 10,000 Federation prisoners, but for Yi Xian, releasing them would definitely cause more harm than good. The harm was even greater than the tens of millions of Federation contribution points Yi Xian would obtain from this matter, as well as the huge amount of cultivation resources and various treasures he would obtain. Because once the 10,000 Federation prisoners were released, everything Yi Xian had in the Black Mosquito Bastion would be exposed. Chapter 2698. Long-term investment. What's the matter, kid? Just as Yi Xian was caught in a dilemma, the green-bearded old man, Du Wenxuan, had recovered from a shock. He walked from the cage that had lost its pillars to Yi Xian and patted him on the shoulder. I don't care how you did it, but I wasn't wrong about you. Tell me what's troubling you. All right, don't pretend you didn't get what you wanted. Now that you can leave, you should leave. Yi Xian chuckled wryly and said nothing more. He only urged Old Man Lu to leave. But you better keep this a secret from me when you get out, old man. It's not appropriate for news of this situation to spread. So that's what you're worried about. Although Yi Xian had only mentioned it casually, Old Man Lu was a shrewd man. He immediately understood and laughed heartily. I say, what are you worried about, kid? You got the entire Black Mosquito Bastion in your hands. What's there to worry about? Who would have thought it was because of something so trivial? Yi Xian's eyes lit up. What do you mean? These 10,000 Federation elites are indeed a problem. Too many people, too many mouths. Once they're released, they'll be a huge threat to your secret of the Black Mosquito Bastion. Old Man Lu nodded slightly. As he spoke, he had already raised his hand and pointed to the surroundings. Then, he continued, however, these are more than 10,000 elites of the Federation after all. To be able to be captured and imprisoned here by the demons with great effort, all of them must have extremely outstanding achievements or advantages in a certain field, or perhaps they are people with extraordinary backgrounds. For the Wan Luo Federation, this is definitely a huge talent resource. It's one thing for the Demonkin to be in charge of the Black Mosquito Bastion, but now that it's in your hands, are you really going to harden your heart and ignore the Federation's influence? Of course, it would be an exaggeration to say that these 10,000 people can affect the general situation of the Federation. They can't even affect the general situation of an empire. But have you heard of this saying? It's called the butterfly effect. And who can say that after they are released, one day in the future, one of them won't play a crucial role in the war between the Myriad Net Federation and the Heaven's Legacy race? Therefore, you must release the experts of the Federation. However, this doesn't mean that you have to risk exposing your secret and sacrifice yourself for a righteous cause. That would be too fake, and this old man can't say it. If you want them to keep a secret, It's actually very simple. Just make them swear a Tao oath one by one and hand over a Tao oath brand to you. If anyone wants to reveal this secret in any way, including being forced to confess or having their soul searched, then you'll be able to sense the Taoist oath brand they handed over immediately. Because this oath is related to the great Tao of the universe, you'll be able to sense it instantly, no matter if you're in the third universe or the first universe. At that time, you'll only need a thought to destroy that person's soul and primordial spirit under the backlash of the Taoist oath. In addition, there's another advantage to this method, and that's that you can use it against them, even if they don't break the Taoist oath brand in their entire life. As long as the Taoist oath brand is not taken back, their Tao heart will never be able to reach perfection. It doesn't matter if their cultivation is weak now, but in the future, once their cultivation rises, this flaw will become extremely important. It may even affect how high their final accomplishments on the path of cultivation will be. In other words, as long as you have these 10,000 Taoist oath brands in your hands, then in the future, if a few of these people become peak existences of the Federation, such as the Lord of the Capital or the Imperial Advisor of the Capital, you'll have struck gold. Once they reach that level, they'll definitely do everything they can to redeem the Taoist oath brand that belongs to them from you. Moreover, they'll have no choice but to use the Taoist oath brand honestly. They won't be able to use any other schemes because you can decide their life and death with a single thought. Once they reach that level, these guys will clearly be even more afraid of death and won't take the risk. Before Old Man Lu could finish speaking, Yixian's eyes lit up and they grew brighter and brighter. Not only would he be able to obtain tens of millions of Federation contribution points, but he would also be able to obtain a large amount of cultivation resources and various treasures. More importantly, this was equivalent to a long-term investment, and the investment would all be in excellent stocks with potential. When he really did reap some benefits in the future, even if only 1% or even 1,000th of these 10,000 potential stocks would take the initiative to repay him, the benefits would be unstoppable. After all, those who would take the initiative to repay him were definitely existences that had already reached a certain level. Even if Yi Xian's level might already be higher than theirs by then, who would complain about taking the initiative to repay such a good thing? Not only would he obtain immediate benefits, but he would also be able to make a long-term investment. There was no better thing in the world than this. The moment he thought of this, Yi Xian became excited. He immediately spread his voice throughout the entire myriad catchment prison. You all heard what Old Man Lu said just now. It's not that I don't want to let you go, but there are too many people and too many mouths. This matter is too big of a threat to me, so I must make an oath. Moreover, because this plan was something that Old Man Lu helped me come up with, in order to prevent all of you from harboring any grudges, when you make the oath in hand over a strand of the Tao Oath brand, you must add a sentence. Never scheme against Old Man Lu in any way because of this matter. My request is that simple. If you can accept it, you can make the oath now. After you hand over the oath brand, and I verify that it's correct, the pillars around you will immediately disappear. Of course, if you feel that the conditions are too harsh and you can't accept it, I won't force you. You can continue to stay in this myriad catchment prison. I, Yi Xian, also guarantee that things like lynching will never happen again, but that's all. Of course, in addition to the oath, you must more or less leave some money to buy your lives. After all, I spent a lot of effort and almost died many times before I finally took down the entire Black Mosquito. Under such circumstances, there's no reason for you to sit back and enjoy all the benefits while I bear all the risks. Making an oath is only a guarantee for this Ye's inherent interests, but it doesn't reflect that you've shared the slightest bit of the risks this Yi had to bear. Therefore, this Ye's suggestion is to take out 70% of all the cultivation resources and various treasures on you. I risked my life to do this, but you only took out 70% of the resources and treasures after it was done. You've profited greatly from this deal. Chapter 2699. The first transaction. As Yi Xian's words spread, the entire myriad catacombs was in an uproar. In the distance, there were even some indistinct curses, but because the voices were not loud and the situation was under control, Yixian did not care at all and directly ignored them. Xianxia and Mei Tang led nearly 100 jailers into the room. At this moment, they were all waiting respectfully at the back of the group of jailers. At first, they were confused by what was happening. Naturally, they did not believe that Yixian was a human expert. How could a human expert have the mental power of the demon people? However, they really could not understand what Yixian had done before. At this moment, when Yixian said that he wanted these people to hand over 70% of their precious cultivation resources and various treasures, the prison guards' eyes immediately lit up. When they looked at Yixian's back again, that kind of overflowing admiration could no longer be suppressed. Boss was still the best. After so many twists and turns, in the end, it turned out to be such a matter. Although the foreshadowing from before was fake, it was so real that it made it impossible for people to reject or argue with it. It was really a blessing to follow such a boss. Although they had dug out some treasures and resources from these people before, even a fool would know that the things they dug out were definitely a drop in the bucket compared to the treasures they kept in their bodies. In the future, once they handed them over or sent them back to the star field of the demon people's ancestral land, these huge amounts of resources and treasures would all go down the drain. Although in order to obtain 70% of the resources and treasures, they would have to release all of them later, but that did not matter. As long as the benefits were in their hands, it was fine. As for these people, if the higher-ups wanted to do something, what did it have to do with them? They did not see the higher-ups sympathizing with them, the lowest-level demon people prison guards. In this kind of situation, if they did not seize the opportunity to obtain more benefits for themselves, that would be stupid. With this thought in mind, the group of prison guards immediately became even more loyal to Yixian. What a good leader. In order to obtain benefits for his brothers, he had to take such a huge risk. To have met such a leader, they would follow him for the rest of their lives. Yixian naturally didn't know about the emotions and emotions in the hearts of these devil cultivator jailers. At this moment, he was calm and composed. He wasn't in a hurry at all as he quietly waited for the Federation experts in the cages to reply. Right now, the initiative was on his side. He believed that these people were more anxious than him. Sure enough, after the commotion, the entire myriad net hell quickly quieted down. The more than 10,000 experts of the Federation were all in deep thought and dilemma. Although Yixian was indeed demanding an exorbitant price, not only did he want to swear an oath of allegiance, but he also wanted to deduct 70% of the cultivation resources and treasures. It was worth mentioning that this 70% could not be tampered with. The oath was there for all to see. If he really tried to tamper with it, he would be the one to suffer. Under such circumstances, anyone would feel as if a large piece of flesh had been gouged out of their heart. It was so painful that they wanted to cry out in pain. However, what the other party said was reasonable. They didn't even have the chance to argue or bargain to reduce the percentage of the deduction even a little bit. The oath was indeed only a means to protect the inherent rights and interests of others, but it did not reflect the sharing of the risks that others had taken in the past. Therefore, the 70% of cultivation resources and treasures would have to be handed over, even if they did not want to. Although it was painful compared to their own lives, this was a debt that even a fool would calculate. Under such circumstances, after some hesitation and struggle, someone quickly made a decision. All right, this old man will now swear an oath of allegiance. This is my oath brand. Inside this space box is 70% of the cultivation resources and treasures this old man has collected for many years. More than 1,000 meters to the right, an old man with a long beard raised his hand and released a divine sense imprint as he spoke. At the same time, he threw out an ordinary small space box. The Tao Oath imprint contains an additional clause of 70% of the cultivation resources and treasures, so this old man can't do anything about it. I hope, fellow Taoist, ye can verify this and immediately let me go. Don't panic, he still keeps his word. Yixian immediately grinned. First, he used his divine sense to guide the Tao Oath brand into his sea of consciousness. After verifying it, He raised his hand and caught the small space box. He used his divine sense to investigate the inside. The various cultivation resources and treasures inside made his eyelids twitch slightly. It was indeed not cheap. To be able to be treated as a treasure by an existence of this level, and even be left behind by the prison guards when they were searching for it, it was naturally not an ordinary item. In addition to the large quantity, just this transaction alone caused Xianxia to be extremely fascinated. Walala. Following the completion of the transaction, Xianxia put away all of the cage pillars around the old man with a thought. He directly disappeared into the folded space and disappeared. Senior, please calm down. I'll ask if there's anyone else who wants to leave. If there is, I'll open the main passage in the basement, and you can all leave together. If there isn't, I'll immediately open the main passage in the basement. After taking the benefits of the other party, Xianxia's attitude became much more courteous. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "This is also for your safety. Wouldn't it be better for everyone to leave together in a group? It's very dangerous outside." The corner of the old man's mouth twitched. He gritted his teeth and didn't say anything else. Old Man Liu, who was beside Xianxia, shook his head and sighed with a bitter expression. He was sure that these 10,000 or so Federation experts all hated him in their hearts. However, even if they hated him, with the clause that Xianxia had deliberately added in the oath, these people couldn't do anything about it. From this point of view, not only was this brat meticulous, he also had a conscience. In the end, he didn't misjudge him. With this thought, Old Man Liu immediately accepted his fate. From now on, he and Xianxia would be grasshoppers on the same rope. At this moment, Xianxia cupped his hands towards the surroundings with a smile and spoke again. "Fellow Taoists, how are your considerations? I've been busy all day, and my body is a little tired. How about, let's talk about it tomorrow?" After saying that, Xianxia waved his hand and turned around to leave. Seeing this, the 10,000 Federation experts around them all knew that Xianxia was just putting on an act. They all hated him so much that the roots of their teeth were itching. However, this matter concerned their lives and deaths, so they didn't dare to do as they pleased. What if Xianxia suddenly changed his mind tomorrow and didn't want to do this again? Or what if he raised the original 70% to 80 or 90%? That would really be F*** up. Chapter 2700. Walk slowly, don't fall. Brother Yi, I've already made my Tao Oath. This is the Tao Oath brand. Take it. And mine. 70% of my cultivation resources and various treasures are in the small space box. Fellow Taoist Yi, help me with this first. I'm going to take a breather. Don't cut in line, those at the back. Don't you know how to go from near to far? I'm the closest to fellow Taoist Yi. Following the successful completion of the first transaction between the old man and Xianxia, a large amount of noise and clamor resounded throughout the area. The imprisoned experts of the Federation all took the initiative to swear an oath. Then, they threw the training resources and treasures that they had chosen and put in the space boxes to Xianxia. This scene was really too shocking. Not to mention Xianxia, even the green-bearded old man Lu Wenshuan, who was used to seeing big scenes, directly opened his mouth wide. He stared blankly at the 10,000 small space boxes that were whistling towards him like rain. It should be known that each of the spatial boxes contained a large amount of cultivation resources and various treasures. Now, even the small space boxes could be piled up into a mountain. When the time came, if all the treasures were taken out and piled up together, the amount was simply unimaginable. Perhaps even the stock in the Skyriver planet's official treasury could not compare. I give in. I am convinced. That's right. I, Mei Tang, have only heard of 10,000 arrows being shot at the same time. That scene must be very frightening. However, only today did I understand that 10,000 arrows being shot at the same time is nothing. Could it compare to the 10,000 small space boxes in front of him? There's simply no comparison. Behind Xianxia, the prison guards of Myriad Sifting Prison were already drooling, completely dumbfounded. Only Xianxia and Mei Tang were still mentally strong enough to say a few words. Everyone, don't panic. Come one by one. All of you will have a chance. All of you will have a chance at this moment. Xian Master Yi was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth, but he forcefully resisted the urge to dance on the spot. Instead, he had a serious expression on his face as he continuously received the Tao oath imprints flying towards him. At the same time, his hands continuously pulled at the small spatial box that was whistling towards him. While keeping them into his body, he released a strand of his divine sense to check the items in the small space box. Almost every time he checked, his eyelids would twitch a few times. A bunch of bastards who deserved to die with 1,000 knives, they all had good stuff. Previously, when he broke into the jailer's team, they cooperated with him to bring over those things. At that time, all of them felt extremely pain when they saw those things. Now that he saw their old cards, Yi Xian finally understood that those guys were all faking it. The resources that were used to support Yi Xian's infiltration into the enemy's rear were nothing. This was good. Now that Yi Xian was plundering them, he felt even more at ease. Although there were quite a few small spatial boxes, they all had the same aura as the Tao oath imprints, so there wasn't any chaos. After an entire 2 hours, Yi Xian finally verified all of the Tao oath imprints. As for the cultivation resources and various treasures in the 10,000-plus small spatial boxes, he'd already verified them. Okay, it's done here. I made everyone wait for a long time. All the cages opened for me. With a smile on his face, Yi Xian almost nodded and bowed to the 10,000 gods of wealth around him. With his last shout, the entire vast myriad sifting prison suddenly resounded with a large number of crackling sounds. More than 10,000 cages, including a small number of cages that didn't contain anyone at all. All the pillars around them rose up and were absorbed into the folded space of myriad sifting prison in the blink of an eye, completely disappearing. In an instant, in the entire myriad sifting prison, there was not a single cage to be seen. This vast space had become a flat channel. Even Xianxia, Mei Tang, and the other prison guards had never seen such a scene before. For a moment, they were dumbfounded and stood there with their mouths wide open, a deep sense of confusion in their eyes. After a few moments of sluggishness, Xianxia and Mei Tang both came back to their senses and turned to Yi Xian with a bitter expression, pleading with him. "Boss, if we don't keep anyone here, we prison guards, won't we lose our jobs?" Yes. Why don't we at least leave 180 of us here? Otherwise, it will be really difficult for us to get used to it in such a short time. Hearing this, the more than 10,000 experts of the Federation, who had just regained their freedom, immediately cast murderous glances at Xianxia and Mei Tang. These words were really too infuriating. They had already made a Tao oath and handed over 70% of their precious cultivation resources and various treasures. They had just regained their freedom with great difficulty, but these two fellows actually wanted them to stay here for a while just to adjust their mentality and adapt to the new changes. If it weren't for the Tao oath brand in Yi Xian's hand, many of these guys would have attacked immediately, wanting to kill Xianxia and Mei Tang on the spot. Look at you guys. Yi Xian immediately rolled his eyes and turned around with a look of disappointment on his face. He said regretfully, "Besides being prison guards, can't you have any other dreams? We'll talk about this later. I'll take you to find another life above." After that, he no longer paid any attention to Xianxia and Mei Tang. He smiled and cupped his hands at the 10,000 experts of the Federation who were glaring at him. He said loudly, "The deal is done. Then I won't see you off. I will now open the main passage to the bottom of the cabin. Everyone, line up and come one by one. Take care and don't fall." After that, Yi Xian raised his hand and waved. A wide passage, 100 meters in diameter, immediately appeared at the center of the cataclysm. Under a huge black membrane of light, the familiar stars of the domain of the graveyard could be vaguely seen. The 10,000 experts of the Federation immediately became excited. They had been imprisoned in the Black Mosquito Bastion for more than 10 years. They had never thought that they would be able to leave alive one day. These thoughts turned into emotions and surged into their hearts. The hatred they felt for Yi Xian inexplicably faded a lot. Although most of them still just snorted coldly, they immediately turned into streaks of light and disappeared into the huge membrane of light. But there were also many people who were open-minded. After this incident, their state of mind went through ups and downs, and there were even signs of a breakthrough. These people's hearts trembled, and they immediately felt like they had an epiphany. Many of them immediately raised their heads and laughed. Then, they cupped their hands at Yi Xian and said loudly, "Brother Yi, we'll meet again someday." Then, they jumped into the huge membrane of light and quickly disappeared. Chapter 2701. Another commotion. Outside the Black Mosquito Bastion, 10,000 Federation soldiers rushed out of the Bastion's main cabin in 10 minutes. They appeared in the vast expanse of the domain of the fallen. It was an eye-catching sight. Coincidentally, there was a small squad of demon dwellers passing by in the distance. As a result, the 7 or 8 members of this small squad all hid behind a small planet at the first moment. This scene was quickly witnessed by them from the start to the end. Even more unfortunate was that this squad did not belong to the Black Mosquito Bastion. They were from one of the 9 other bastions. In the domain of the graveyard, although each of the 10 bastions was responsible for a domain, there was no clear dividing line. Therefore, it was quite common for the demon scouts from 2 or 3 neighboring bastions to accidentally wander into the domains of other bastions. This small squad of demon dwellers was in such a situation. The 7 or 8 of them had been muttering to themselves about why there were so few demonkin scouts in this part of the domain of the fallen. Over the last 4 or 5 days, they'd only run into a dozen or so. Who would have thought that as soon as he finished speaking, he would see such a shocking scene? Every bastion had a 10,000 catacombs, so the 7 or 8 of them immediately understood what was happening. There is no doubt that something had gone wrong with the Black Mosquito Bastion. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a mass release of prisoners from the 10,000 catacombs. We have to report this immediately. Perhaps we'll be rewarded for our efforts. That's right. Although we haven't finished our mining mission, this is an urgent matter. We have to go back now. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry back. Our bastion is still very far away from this part of the domain of the fallen. Our current speed, it'll take us at least 10 days to get there. We can't delay any longer. After some discussion, this small squad of demon scouts immediately turned around and ran back. Very soon, they disappeared into the vast void of stars in the distance, gradually moving further and further away, Skyriver Planet. Just as Yi Xian released the 10,000 Federation soldiers, Skyriver Planet was once again in an uproar. When he'd released the green-bearded old man and the other old man who'd completed the first transaction, Yi Xian's Federation contribution points had only changed a little. But then, as he opened the more than 10,000 cages at the same time, all the Federation contribution points were in place at the same time. The result was that in the Federation Affairs Hall, in all the administrative planets of the Myriad Federation, the Federation contribution points, ranking list of the Federation contribution points, ranking list of the Federation contribution points, ranking list data changed again. It was a huge change, far more terrifying than the one before. Human ranking, 1998. Yi Xian, Interstellar Mercenary Serial Number, the 131488080. Current Federation contribution points, 10187654430. Before, Yi Xian had been ranked in the top 8,000. Federation contribution points. But now, he directly charged into the top 2,000 and was close to the Earth ranking. His Federation contribution points had suddenly increased by more than 70 million points. This was actually very normal. On average, the 10,000 Federation elites who'd been released had only increased his contribution points by 7,000. The key was that the base number was large. The average of 7,000 multiplied by 10,000 would directly increase his contribution points by 70 million. As a result, Yi Xian's Federation contribution points had exceeded the 100 million mark. If he'd been ranked in the top 900 or so, he would have been able to charge into the Earth ranking. But his strength was still at level 8 core state. And all of this had been accomplished in a short span of a day. Heavens, this guy is insane. Zhao Long gasped. After saying this, he was speechless for a long time. It's over, it's over. At least the higher-ups in the imperial capital will be alerted. Bai Zhengjuan's face was ashen as he slumped in his chair, muttering to himself as if he'd lost his soul. What the F***CK? Space pirate hate Luo Ying's vision turned black. She is supreme existence in the middle stage of the black hole state, could not catch her breath and suffocated on the spot. Gasp. This guy is going to make a fortune. Master Su's eyes were shining as he swallowed hard. Luluo, in the name of the Xianyuan family, immediately request the Skyriver Planet's government to use the Skyriver Planet's superbrain to connect to the level 1-star network. Purplish Warbler clenched her right fist tightly. Her body was trembling because of excitement. Her eyes were burning like fire as she stared at Yi Xian's name on the big screen in the Skyriver Planet Federation's affairs hall. However, she immediately passed the order to Luluo beside her. Tell them to apply for 2 consecutive connections. I want to contact the Imperial Capital Star directly and ask the Xianyuan family to send my team immediately. Every core prodigy of the family will have their own sequence team when they decide to compete for the sequence. Hearing this, Luluo's expression changed drastically. She exclaimed, "Miss, you haven't accumulated enough strength yet. If you want to compete for the Xianyuan family sequence, you should at least wait until you reach the peak of level 9 black hole to have a chance of succeeding. Otherwise, if you fail, you won't have the chance to enter the Xianyuan family's core power of this generation. Every core prodigy of the family only has one chance to compete for the sequence. We can't be too reckless. There's no need to say more. I've already decided. I'll bet everything on Yi Xian." Xianyuan Xing waved her hand without hesitation. "Go and do it. I believe he won't disappoint me. Although he is only at the 8th level of the core realm, and although I don't know how he did it, I know that in the history of the Myriad Luo Federation, there has never been anyone who could surpass him in this realm." Purplish Warbler paused. Her expression suddenly turned gloomy. She sighed and continued, "Although the previous situation was sensational, he's only in the top 8,000. Needless to say, this kind of talent can attract the attention of the Xianxia nation, but it's still not enough to attract the attention of the Imperial Capital Star. But it's different this time. He's already charged into the top 2,000 in an instant, far surpassing me. He'll be able to enter the Earth ranking in less than 1,000. You have to know that any existence on the Earth ranking is an honored guest, even in the 3 great imperial capitals. This time, Yi Xian is destined to be targeted by the major families of the 3 imperial capitals. A person like him is destined to enter the Earth role. Before he enters the Earth role, the price to pay to win him over is even lower. This is something that the old guys in the 3 imperial capitals understand better than I do. Therefore, it's not up to me to decide whether to choose Yi Xian. It's up to him to decide whether to choose me. This is such a simple logic, yet you still don't understand it? I understand it a long time ago. Chapter 2702. A severe warning after dealing with the matters of the Myriad Cataclysm at the bottom level. Yi Xian did not linger on the first level. He immediately led Sha Mei Tang and nearly 100 other wardens back to the 2nd level, where the Demon's Cavern resided. Then, he handed the group of wardens over to Barker, asking him to arrange for a large amount of cultivation resources and urge them to improve their cultivation as soon as possible. Out of caution, Yi Xian secretly told Barker to be a little more careful in case they made any strange moves. After all, they were not demon slaves, so it was always better to be more careful. However, Yi Xian also specifically told Barker to keep this matter to himself and not spread it out, in case they were not disloyal. If they really showed suspicion, they might be disloyal. This was not Yi Xian being suspicious. After all, they were demons and belonged to the enemy camp, so he had to do this. After doing all this, Yi Xian, Li Mosquito, Naboshin, and Old Man Lu returned to the 4th level of the Black Mosquito Bastion. At present, the luxurious hall on the right side of the core area of the 4th level had become Yi Xian's territory. Even Naboshin and Li Mosquito could only find a place to stay on the periphery of the 4th level. Stinking brat, you really took over the entire Black Mosquito Bastion? After Li Mosquito and Naboshan left, Old Man Lu approached him with a mysterious expression. Why do I feel like I'm dreaming? Let's not talk about anything else. Tell me, how did you subdue those two Black Hole Realm cultivators? I think they were very obedient. There's something mysterious about this. If I say that it's because I'm such a good person that I influenced them, would you believe me? Yixian rolled his eyes and laughed. TSK, you might as well say that you're the illegitimate son of D.E. of the Tianji clan. That's more believable. Old Man Lu was immediately stunned. His eyes were filled with resentment as he stared at Yixian with a face full of disdain. He seemed to be muttering something about burning bridges after crossing the river, and people's hearts were not what they used to be. You old man, I haven't made you swear an oath yet. Are you trying to remind me? Also, everyone else has left, so why are you still here? Are you not leaving because you want to eat and drink for free? Yixian laughed inwardly, but his face darkened. Perhaps you've been influenced by my good character and want to stay on the Black Mosquito Bastion as a free laborer? I can do that, but I have to say that. At most, don't be so narcissistic. If I hadn't taken a fancy to this bastion's ubiquitous dimensional folding matrix and wanted to study it, I wouldn't have kept any of the resources you'd give me. Of space folding bastion. Yixian's eyes immediately lit up. That's easy to say. I'll lend the Black Mosquito to you for research. However, after you have results, you must help me imprint a spatial folding formation on a small private battleship. At that time, the outer appearance will be a small private battleship, but the space inside will be the same as a space fortress. You're a smart kid. I just gave you a hint, and you're already thinking of the same thing as me. Old Man Lu had a strange expression on his face, but he didn't refute this point. Space folding technology is the Tianji clan's newest achievement in space technology. It only appeared in the last few hundred years. Our Wanluo Federation captured a bastion that used this technology in a small battle more than 200 years ago. Unfortunately, after 200 years of research, the Wanluo Federation's various bastions have begun to use space folding technology on a small scale, but still not mature enough. As for using it on small private battleships, that's even more impossible. But this idea is clearly a very promising research direction. This old man is most interested in pioneering this kind of technology. As long as I can make a breakthrough in my research, space folding technology will gradually become more common. Many of the Federation's experts will have small private battleships that use space folding technology. That would be a very virtuous thing to do. Old Man Lu rose to his feet as he spoke and extended a hand in front of Yixian. If you want to study space folding technology on the Black Mosquito Bastion, you'll have to travel to every part of this bastion. I don't have the authority to use those portals. Do you understand what I mean, kid? Yixian shrugged his shoulders and immediately sent a spiritual imprint into Old Man Lu's palm. This is the spiritual imprint of the Devil Cultivator. If you're a Devil Cultivator, you can continue to exist, but this is obviously impossible. Therefore, in at most 3 months, you will be exhausted. At that time, you can come find me again. With this spiritual imprint, you can open all the spatial doors. That's good. I'll get to work first. Old Man Lu turned and left. At the same time, he reminded Yixian, Kid, you've just obtained a huge amount of cultivation resources and all kinds of treasures. It's very likely that there are some legendary, epic, and even supreme treasures among them. But I advise you not to rush to the selection. Be careful not to be dazzled and blinded. Although you're in control of the Black Mosquito Bastion now, your cultivation base is still too weak. Although you can use the Li Mosquito Bastion and Mount Naibwa, they're still external forces. Don't rely too much on them. Besides, just because they're under your control now doesn't mean that they'll always be under your control. There's no such thing as a sure-kill situation for the experts in the Black Hole Realm. Don't be careless and suffer a big setback. After he finished speaking, Old Man Lu's figure disappeared and left the hall. Yixian was immediately stunned. After a long time, he cupped his hands and bowed deeply in the direction where Old Man Lu's figure had disappeared. Thank you for your warning, Senior. These words were indeed tantamount to a wake-up call for Yixian. Previously, he had subconsciously thought that all the demon slaves would never have a chance to turn the tables after they were controlled by his slave seal. But now that he thought about it, this was obviously not the case. It should be noted that the demon race's demon core in the female Black Mosquito Bastion's brain had a spiritual restriction placed on it by a demon race commander. The female Black Mosquito Bastion had also said that once its cultivation base increased from the Black Hole Realm Level 6 to the Black Hole Realm Level 7, the female Black Mosquito Bastion would be able to refine it instantly. Since that was the case, the effect was actually the same. It was just that the slave seal was more overbearing and thorough. Why couldn't it be refined? Once the female Black Mosquito Bastion or Mountain Ibel Bastion's cultivation base had another breakthrough, surpassing the Black Hole Realm and entering the 9th realm of the Starry Sky Realm. Would the level 9 slave seal still be able to enslave them? Or was it that at that time, he would have to plant another level 10 slave seal? This kind of thing could obviously be spread to all the other demon slaves. Did that mean that once all the demon slaves broke through a realm, the slave seal in their bodies would have to be upgraded? Chapter 2703. Return to Skyriver planet Xianxia was already on his guard regarding the upgrade of the slave seal, but there was no need to worry about it for the time being. After all, even the Mosquito, who had entered late Black Hole Realm, was only at Black Hole's 7th order. It was still too early for her to enter the next realm. However, there are likely to be some who had already reached 8th order or even 9th order among the large number of low-level slaves below. Due to their low realms, the speed at which they improved was not slow given the availability of large amounts of cultivation resources. Therefore, it did not take long for them to break through to the next realm. He had to be on his guard. After muttering to himself for a while, Yixin immediately gave the order to Barker to create a roster for all the demon slaves in the Black Mosquito Battlestar. They were divided according to their cultivation levels, especially those who had reached the late stage of a certain realm. Pay close attention to them, and once they reached the 9th step, they would immediately give a small roster to Yixin. In this way, Yixin would be able to prepare a higher-level slave seal in advance. After this was done, he was completely relieved. He did not carefully examine the 10,000 small boxes. After all, the treasure was already in his hands and would not fly away. He could look at it again when he had the time. As far as he was concerned, the most important thing right now was to increase his strength again. That way, he would be able to reach the 9th level of the core realm, which was the great circle of the core realm. One more step, and he would be able to enter the 2nd great circle of the meteor realm. Previously, Yixin had been rapidly increasing his realms. By the time he reached 7th order core realm, there was already a hidden danger of instability. Later, in order to compete for the position of Warden Commander in the 1st layer of the Cataclysm, he had forcibly increased his realms to 8th order core realm. Originally, he had not planned to increase his realms again in the short term. However, now that he had succeeded in taking over the Black Mosquito Bastion and continuously surging in the Federation's contribution points ranking, Yixin's mental state had been tempered. Therefore, the hidden danger of his realms rising too quickly had been mitigated by the improvement of his mental state. In other words, even if he were to break through to the complete Grade 9 Star Core state, there would be no hidden dangers of instability in his realm. But that was all. If he wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to charge into the 1st level of the Meteor Realm in one go, then it was obviously not too appropriate. After all, it was a leap of a large realm. Not to mention anything else, he still had to make more preparations for perfection of his mental state. After considering all of this, Yixin decided to first raise his cultivation to the peak of the 9th step of the Star Core realm in one go before doing anything else. After achieving this, his plan was to immediately make another trip to the Heavenly River Star. As for the purpose, of course, it was to use 10 million Federation contribution points to exchange for a bottle of level 9 gene cultivation fluid at the Skyriver Stars Federation Affairs Hall. Of course, if there was more than one bottle in stock, Yixin would not mind exchanging for a few more. After all, his Federation contribution points had already passed the 100 million mark. It would be a waste not to use them. Keeping them was just a number, and it was all for the sake of gratification. Naturally, a treasure like level 9 gene cultivation fluid would not be stored in the treasury of a small administrative planet like the Heavenly River Star. However, through the planet's supercomputer, information on the exchange could be sent up level by level. According to Xianxia's calculations, the level 9 gene cultivation fluid should be stored in the treasury of the Everlasting Dynasty's capital, the Undying Planet. However, as soon as someone paid 10 million Federation contribution points to exchange for the fluid, the higher-ups would immediately activate the transmission array and send the exchanged item over. Of course, ordinary items would not be able to enjoy this service. After all, the cost of transporting items from the Undying Planet to the Heavenly River Star was huge. However, a treasure of this level was meant to demonstrate efficiency and the reliability of the myriad Luo Federation's contribution point exchange system. Therefore, even if the cost of the transmission process was huge, considering the invisible publicity effect and the effect of disturbing people's hearts, the treasury of the Imperial Capital Star would definitely spare no effort. In other words, as long as Xian went to the Heavenly River Star and applied for the exchange, he would definitely be able to obtain the level 9 gene cultivation fluid he had been dreaming of for a day at most. As long as he could achieve this, it would be enough for Xian. As for the consequences of his identity being exposed and being watched by a large number of powerhouses on the Heavenly River Star, Xian did not care at all. He had the confidence to do so. Of course, there would definitely be a large number of malicious gazes on the Heavenly River Star. Right now, they were all vigilantly scanning the area. Bai Zhongjun, Zhao Long, even the space pirate, He Luo Ying. However, even if Xian entered the Heavenly River Star openly, these black hole realm powerhouses would definitely not dare to make a move on Xian openly. Xian had now become a legend. He was in the top 2,000 of the ranking list of young masters. More than that, he represented a status and value that the entire myriad Luo Federation put on the table. If these guys dared to make a move on Xian openly, Xian was confident that all the powerhouses of the Federation on the Heavenly River Star would gang up on them. The power of role models and idols was sometimes limitless. Xian was not the only one who understood this. These guys were even more so. Therefore, even if they wanted to make a move, they could only do so after Xian had left the Heavenly River Star. Once Xian was out of the Heavenly River Star and no longer under the protection of the Heavenly River Star's array, he would have nothing to fear with his Black Mosquito Bastion. It was important to remember that the bastions of the Demonkin, or Tianji clan, were different from those of the Myriad Luo Federation. The Myriad Luo Federation's bastions could not be absorbed into one's body. Although they used space-folding technology, it was not fully developed. The 10 vanguard bastions of the Demonkin, on the other hand, were fully developed with space-folding technology. Even the weak Xian could absorb the Black Mosquito Bastion and its crew into his body after refining the superbrain that served as the ship's AI. No one else knew about this. When the time came, Xian would return to the Heavenly River Star alone. Of course, this was only on the surface. Once he left Sky River Planet, if he encountered any obstacles, he could throw out an advanced space fortress if necessary. Inside this space fortress, there were 2 black hole realm powerhouses, and one of them was even at the advanced stage of the black hole realm. With these thoughts running through his mind, Xian couldn't help but look forward to his return to the Heavenly River Star. Chapter 2704. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin 9th Level Perfection Ding. Discovered Star Core Origin. Do you want to start absorbing energy? As Xian threw a large amount of Star Core Origin to the devouring system, the system's prompt sounded in his mind. Was he finally about to reach the 9th level perfection? As this thought flashed through his mind, Xian could not help but become excited and immediately gave an affirmative answer. Soon, the devouring system activated the bloodline talent of Xian's star-devouring beast and rapidly began to absorb the essence of the Star Core Origin, continuously pouring it into Xian's body and slowly expanding his meridians. Gradually, it turned into a torrent and rushed toward the bottleneck of the 9th level of the insightful emptiness technique. Throughout the entire process, Xian's eyes were tightly shut. His consciousness was wrapped around his body, and it was as if he'd arrived at a vast and boundless galaxy. His surroundings were empty and distant, and he emitted an ancient aura that shot straight to his soul. Roar! An earth-shattering roar came from the depths of the void, attracting Xian's consciousness. The scene changed. A gigantic claw that was as vast as the sky stretched out from the endless darkness. With a casual swipe, the void collapsed, and an entire region of stars collapsed. Then, from the endless darkness, a round and flat head stretched out, its eyes surrounded by endless chaotic mist, making it impossible to see the light in its eyes. This was an enormous tortoise, and a single pattern on its body was the size of a galaxy. It crawled out from the darkness, and the oppressive aura it emanated enveloped the entire universe, causing space to tremble. It seemed to be unable to endure its oppressive aura and was about to collapse. Huff! Xian suddenly opened his eyes and heard the sound of his rapid breathing. Only then did he realize that he was sweating profusely. The giant tortoise he saw during cultivation had scared him so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. A small shell pattern on its shell was as large as an entire galaxy. A casual swipe of its forelimbs could destroy the endless void of an entire galaxy. Could such a terrifying giant tortoise really exist in the real world? What was the relationship between it and the Dongshu chapter that he cultivated? This wasn't the first time that Xian had seen this giant tortoise. Although he couldn't see the tortoise roaming in the boundless galaxy every time he cultivated, he had to immerse himself in it. Under the influence of some kind of aura, it could only be realized. However, he had seen it once when he first cultivated the incomplete Dongshu scripture. This time, the aura the giant tortoise gave him was even more terrifying. It was no wonder that the devouring system had identified an incomplete cultivation method as a supreme treasure of the starry sky level. Xian could not imagine how terrifying the level of the complete Dongshu cultivation method would be. Thinking back to the ancient aura he felt just now, two words suddenly appeared in Xian's mind: primordial desolation. Apart from the legendary desolate era, where else could such an ancient aura be found? In addition, a gigantic tortoise that was as large as the starry sky would probably only appear in that fascinating prehistoric era. Could it be that the incomplete Dongshu chapter that he cultivated originated from the desolate era? This thought frightened Xian, but at the same time, it also made his heart beat faster. However, it was obvious that he couldn't get the answer. Just as Xian was lost in thought, the system's notification quietly sounded in his mind again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for leveling up. Current realm: 9th level core realm. 9th level? Perfect core realm? Xian was stunned for a moment before he was pleasantly surprised. He quickly checked the situation within his body and found that his strength had increased by several times. The true chi of the starry sky, which far surpassed the true chi of the immortal god, was as vast as a river, giving him an inexplicable sense of confidence. It's time to go back to the sky river planet. I must get the 9th level gene cultivation fluid. I can't delay any longer. After finishing his cultivation, Xian pondered for a while and decided what to do next. With a flip of his hand, he took out the star essence crystal box that contained a fragment of the immortal grade star superbrain. Xian spread out his divine sense and penetrated the box to sense it, but he couldn't find the slightest trace of life. Although the fragment of this immortal-level superbrain hadn't completely withered away, as if it was undergoing nirvana, the few tubes of level 8 gene cultivation fluid that Xian had poured into the star marrow crystal box were clearly not enough to awaken its activity. His only chance was the 9th level gene cultivation fluid. After making up his mind, Xian immediately stood up and put the star essence crystal box into his undying world again. It was also at this time that Barker walked into the core hall of the 4th floor of the Black Mosquito mothership with 2 small booklets in his hands. After standing still, he extended his hand and handed them over to Xian. Master, all of the demon slaves have been recorded, and their cultivation levels are recorded in detail. The other booklet is for the demon slaves that have reached the 9th step in each realm, a total of 38 of them. These 2 booklets are copies. I still have the original with me. Okay, I understand. Xian was once again impressed by Barker's attention to detail. He then flipped open the booklet containing the names of the demon slaves who were at the 9th level Great Perfection. These 38 demon slaves were basically at the satellite and planet realms, which are the 3rd and 4th level Great Perfection. If Xian wanted to ensure absolute control over them, he only needed to refine 38 4th and 5th level Great Perfection slave seals. It wouldn't be too troublesome. This matter had to be dealt with before they left for Skyriver Planet. Otherwise, if they were ambushed after leaving Skyriver Planet, it would be really depressing if their own backyard caught fire in the middle of a battle. Although the 38 demon slaves weren't enough to overturn the heavens, they were still a hidden danger. After spending half a day, Xian finished refining the required 38 4th and 5th level Great Perfection slave seals. He then spread out his psychic power and investigated the 3rd Division's elite living quarters. In the end, Xian locked onto a demon slave called Wen9. This guy's cultivation level wasn't low. He had reached the 9th level Great Perfection of the planet realm. Since it was a break, Wen9 wasn't on duty in the 3rd floor's engine room. Instead, he was cultivating in a villa in the living quarters. Ever since Xian had taken control of the Black Mosquito mothership, the demon slaves under his command were no longer divided according to their cultivation level. They were divided according to their positions. This guy called Wen9 wasn't in charge of the 3rd floor's engine room, so even if it was a cave, he could only share rooms with others. Considering that Wen9's strength was far greater than his own, Xian called the Mosquito to accompany him. The 2 of them quietly entered Wen9's villa. Chapter 2705. The little ancestor is here. The result was no surprise. 2 hours later, Wen9 broke through and regained his consciousness. He even seemed to retain memories of his time as Xian's slave. He was a devious one, and had planned to sneak into the engine area and use the Black Mosquito's communication system to send a message to the other 9 bastions. Of course, he couldn't do that. Even if he did go to the engine area and take control of the communication system, he wouldn't be able to send out a signal without Xian's approval. Because the super brain, which was the main control center of the Black Mosquito Bastion, had been refined by Xian, these little Ming Tang couldn't escape his senses and control. Xian had the Mosquito act and take control of Wen9, then planted a 5th-ranked slave seal in him. Everything returned to normal after that. But Xian wasn't in a good mood. Although Wen9's actions confirmed Xian's suspicions, they weren't good news to begin with. He was going to be busy in the days to come. Unfortunately, Xian didn't have the time to figure out how to get rid of this problem. There were too many things to do, and he could only put them aside for the time being and deal with them later. He quickly planted the other 37 4th and 5th-ranked slave seals. For the time being, there wouldn't be any more problems. Barker would also keep a close eye on him. Once he discovered an 8th-ranked slave breaking through to the 9th level, he would report it to Xian. For the time being, this was the only way to deal with it. After settling this matter, Xian gathered Mount Naibwa, the Mosquito, Barker, and the other trusted aides. After giving them such instructions, he left the Black Mosquito Star Fortress and appeared in the void of the Graveyard Star region outside the Star Fortress. It had been more than a month since he'd been captured in the Black Mosquito Bastion. Xian couldn't help but sigh at his sudden return. He looked up and saw the Black Death Star. Black Mosquito Bastion hovered behind it, at the edge of the domain's core. It was said that there were a few natural wormholes that were famous in several universes. Through those natural wormholes, one could go to the first universe, the second universe where a large number of races of the Federation lived, and even the vast and boundless Nameless Star region. Of course, if it was the latter, they would not be able to return. In the first universe and the second universe, natural wormholes had been discovered that were connected to this place. Perhaps there were some in the Nameless Starfield as well, but they had yet to be discovered. With a thought, Xian raised his hand and stored the Black Mosquito into his body. From the outside, a big fellow with a diameter of 10,000 meters, was indeed frightening. However, because the entire black mosquito had been refined into a magic treasure by Yi Xian, he could control it as he wished. What's more, it used a lot of mature space-folding technology. Even with Yi Xian's current strength, he could store a large number of demons in the Black Mosquito Bastion with no problem. It wasn't that Yi Xian didn't want to take the Black Mosquito Bastion directly to Sky River. If he did, he'd only need to use a very expensive short-distance warp to save a lot of time. After all, they were at the edge of the domain's core. Even with the Purple Star Shuttle's speed, it would take at least 7 or 8 days. However, in that case, it would be tantamount to exposing everything that Yi Xian had done. Although the Black Mosquito Star Fortress was built by the Tianji clan based on the human race's Star Fortress, all of the human race's Star Fortresses had serial numbers. No one in the domain of the graveyard would pay attention to them. If they went near the Sky River planet, the supercomputer in the Sky River planet would scan them, and they would be exposed. So he could only take it with him. As for when they were ambushed, there was nothing he could do. It was different from his current situation. In fact, other than the Black Mosquito Bastion, he didn't even dare take the Lido Mosquito or Mountain Eyeball with him. These two guys had the same appearance as humans, but it was absolutely impossible for them to enter the interior of Sky River Star. They could not pass the identity scan of Sky River Star's Star Defense Array. It was true that the demons couldn't distinguish them with their naked eyes and divine sense, but the super brain of the administrative planet had the ability to do so. It was also for this reason that the Demunkin's 10 bastions were only active in the core region of the domain of the Fallen. They wouldn't go near the edge of the domain of the Milky Way. If they were captured and brought back to the Milky Way star system, they would be exposed. After summoning the Purple Star Shuttle, Yi Xian hurried along the way. It took him a full 6 days to finally see the Heavenly River star in front of him. Today, the Heavenly River planet didn't look any different from usual. The only difference was that there seemed to be more Federation powerhouses coming in and out. After all, the commotion caused by the interstellar mercenary Brother Yi, whose serial number ended with 8080, 6 days ago was quite effective in stirring up people's hearts. Over the past few days, countless denizens of the Federation had come from far away. After replenishing their supplies on Sky River, they couldn't wait to enter the domain of the domain. In their opinion, if an interstellar mercenary with a cultivation base of only star core state level 8 could achieve such a feat, what was impossible for them if their luck was slightly better? Yi Xian silently passed through a passage in the Star Defense Array outside the Heavenly River planet's atmosphere and entered the interior of the Heavenly River planet. He then headed straight for the huge platform that was suspended above the sea. That was where the Sky River Federation's business hall was located. In fact, a few days ago, Bai Zhengjun had already issued an order to Heavenly River Planet Superbrain. Once Yi Xian returned, he would be notified immediately. The entire administrative planet was under the control of the supercomputer, so it didn't take much effort to do this. As the Sky River Planet's manager, Bai Zhengjun had a certain level of authority in front of the supercomputer. In fact, he had the highest authority in the entire Sky River planet. Even Zhao Long couldn't get in touch with the supercomputer. Even so, his authority was limited. At the very least, he couldn't order the supercomputer to activate the domain's defensive array and attack Yi Xian. The people on the heaven, earth, and human roles all had extraordinary status. Once Bai Zhengjun issued such an order, it would be rejected immediately. In fact, the reason why he ordered the supercomputer to monitor Yi Xian's return and send him a message as soon as he arrived on Sky River Planet was not like last time. He didn't want to attack Yi Xian. At this moment, Bai Zhengjun was in his own residence. He immediately received a notification from the Sky River Star Space Supercomputer. Chapter 2706. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation 10,000 people turn out. Bai Zhengjun was not the only one keeping an eye on Yi Xian. For example, Zhao Long, He Luoying, and the Purplish Warbler Master and Servant were all in the same group. Zhao Long had no way of contacting Yi Xian's superbrain, but he had subordinates who had seen Yi Xian in person. Therefore, 6 days ago, Zhao Long sent out several people, each with a close-up image of Yixian, to guard the entrances of Skyriver Star's great defensive formation. They closely watched everyone who entered Skyriver Star. One of them was lucky. The passageway he was guarding was the one that Yixian had entered. Overjoyed, this guy immediately notified Zhao Long. He was immediately praised so much that he was about to fly into the sky. He Luoying and the Purplish Warbler Master and servant were even more direct. She then found out that Yixian needed the level 9 gene cultivation fluid. Although she did not know why Yixian, who was only in the first realm of cultivation, needed the level 9 gene cultivation fluid that was only used to enter the 9th realm. But there was one thing she could vaguely guess. The reason Yixian had obtained so many Federation contribution points in such a short time was because he wanted to exchange them for the level 9 gene cultivation fluid. Because Xianyuan had told Yixian that there was a small amount of level 9 gene cultivation fluid in the exchange vault of the Everlasting Dynasties Federation. Although she did not know how Yixian had done all this, she was sure of one thing. Once Yixian could leave, he would definitely return to Skyriver Star to exchange for it. Of course, he could go to other administrative planets, but Skyriver Star was the closest. If he relied on a small personal warship to go to other administrative planets, it would take at least 10 years. Therefore, Xianyuan stayed in the Federation Hall of Skyriver Star. He didn't even bother to visit Master Su, who was dealing with a small black hole in the nearby star field. Of course, another reason why she had stayed on the Skyriver Star instead of searching for Yixian in the domain of the buried meteorites was that she was waiting for the Xianyuan family on the capital star to send her a battle team to compete with her. As for the Purplish Warbler's request to officially start the family sequence competition, the Xianyuan family initially refused and suggested that she should only apply after she had reached the Black Hole realm. However, the Purplish Warbler insisted and said that she was an old acquaintance of Yixian. The Xianyuan family immediately agreed. From this, it could be seen that Yixian's name was well known even on the capital star. As for He Luoying, he had the same idea as the Purplish Warbler. Although he didn't know that Yixian was in urgent need of level 9 gene cultivation fluid, he at least knew that anyone who suddenly had hundreds of millions of Federation contribution points would definitely go to the nearest administrative planet Federation Hall to exchange for them as soon as they had the time. After all, the Federation contribution points were only useful for getting on the Heaven, Earth, and Human lists. They were just a bunch of numbers for fun. It was better to exchange them for a large amount of cultivation resources from the Federation. Therefore, He Luoying had been guarding the Federation Hall of Skyriver Star. He wasn't liked by Xingjun and Zhao Long, who didn't dare to attack anyone on the Heaven, Earth, and Human lists. He was originally a space pirate, so what was there to be afraid of? As long as the benefits were enough, it wasn't impossible for him to betray the Wan Luo Federation. Although not all space pirates were like this, He Luoying was undoubtedly one of them with no bottom line. Yixian had been to the Federation Hall of Skyriver Star twice before, so he was very familiar with this place. After landing on this huge platform, Yixian didn't go to any other areas this time. In fact, the treasures he prepared to exchange for this time were only level 9 gene cultivation fluids. He didn't want to exchange for anything else. He didn't even plan to participate in the auction. Why? Because there were still more than 10,000 small boxes piled up in his undying world. To be able to be recognized as valuable by the demon cultivator scouts of the Tianji clan, and only be able to capture and imprison them instead of directly killing them, they were obviously not ordinary people. Each of them took out 70% of their cultivation resources and various treasures. As far as Yixian was concerned, he would probably be able to find anything he needed from the 10,000 plus small spatial boxes. Of course, the devouring origin was an exception. Therefore, Yixian didn't need to exchange for anything else. He believed that something like the Federation contribution points would be of great use in the future. The Wan Luo Federation wouldn't just take out ordinary treasures to reward him. Perhaps after entering the Earth leaderboard, he would be able to see more treasures available for exchange with his authority. With this in mind, Yixian didn't plan to waste his Federation contribution points on ordinary treasures and resources. Apart from exchanging for level 9 gene cultivation fluids, he would save everything else. He headed straight for the Federation Hall of Skyriver Star's contribution points exchange area. There were a total of 10 windows in the contribution points exchange area, and there were quite a lot of people. It was also because of this that He Luoying and the Purplish Warbler didn't notice Yi Xian immediately. After all, he had been deliberately keeping a low profile. However, when the line reached Yi Xian, he requested to exchange for level 9 gene cultivation fluids from the beautiful AI robot at the window. After his identity was scanned, Yi Xian's request was displayed on the big screen on the main wall of the Hall of Skyriver Star. For a moment, the entire Hall of Skyriver Star was in an uproar. Huh? Someone actually wants to exchange for level 9 gene cultivation fluids? What kind of god was this? 10 million points per tube. Okay. Is this a joke? It must be a joke. This is something that powerhouses who have reached Black Hole Realm level 9 and want to advance to a higher realm need. Who would have? Oh my god, it's 8,080. 80. It can't be right. My idol has descended? No wonder. Apart from him, who else would be so generous as to exchange for 3 tubes of level 9 gene cultivation fluids? The Wan Luo Federation's official contribution points exchange area, Kuchin stock, is going to be swept clean by him alone. His Federation contribution points are over 100 million, and he earned that in just a few days. If you have that much, you dare to exchange for 10 tubes, let alone 3. Move away. Don't block my view. This is my idol. I want to see the voice and smile of the great man up close. As the news of the appearance of Yi Xian's real body spread out, the entire office of the Heavenly River Star Federation immediately emptied out. The other offices were all empty. Everyone was crowding toward the office, so much so that the Purplish Warbler and his servant could not move forward. Black Luoying, on the other hand, retreated as far away as possible. With coldness in her eyes, she locked onto Yi Xian with her telepathic thoughts. Chapter 2707. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. The ultimate trial by Zhengjuan's purpose in coming here this time was to resolve the grudge between them. After all, Yi Xian was about to enter the Earth role. Even if he couldn't, he was ranked in the top 2,000 of the Federation's contribution scoreboard. His precious son, who held an important position in the capital, Xianxia planet, couldn't compare to him. Therefore, Bai Zhengjun really planned to let go of the grudge between them. He only hoped that Yi Xian wouldn't be so calculative. Therefore, when he hurried over, he almost put down his status as a star manager and spoke in an obvious tone of flattery. Of course, from Bai Zhengjuan's point of view, it wasn't shameful to curry favor with a human prodigy who was ranked in the top 2,000 of the Federation's contribution scoreboard. In fact, the other Federation powerhouses also thought the same. They were even more eager than Bai Zhengjun. At this moment, as Bai Zhengjuan's voice rang out, a large number of valiant guards, who looked like law enforcement officers on Earth, descended from the sky. They pushed and shoved, and very soon, they cleared a space around Yi Xian. The Federation powerhouses, who were pushed to the side, didn't dare to say anything. Their faces were full of helplessness. As the star manager of the Tianhe planet, although Bai Zhengjun didn't have military power, he still had an official armed force in charge of administration. These guards were almost all the private soldiers of the Bai family. On the Tianhe planet, they were definitely in existence that no one dared to provoke. Even the Purplish Warbler was blocked out of the crowd. Although she was a Black Hole Realm powerhouse, she didn't dare to confront Bai Zhengjun directly because she was inside the Tianhe planet and was afraid of the threat of the Star Defense Array. Besides, there was no need for that. She and Yi Xian were old friends. When she found an opportunity later, she could just wave her hand and say a few words to him. Chief Bai Xingzhong, you're clearly up to no good. Just as the large number of official guards of the Heavenly River planet had cleared out an empty space in the Federation Exchange Hall, revealing Yi Xian's lonely figure standing there. Bai Zhengjun was about to descend and greet him when an extremely abrupt and unfriendly voice suddenly rang out. Zhao Long's face was full of sarcasm. Behind him was a group of personal guards. They were striding forward. Before they arrived, their voices could be heard again. I heard that after Brother Yi left the auction last time, not long after he left the Sky River Star, he encountered several planet-level battleships that wanted to rob him. Moreover, all of them were engraved with concealment arrays. He, in the Sky River Star field, who can have such a few advanced large-scale battleships? I think everyone knows in their hearts, right? As soon as they heard this, a large number of Federation powerhouses around suddenly had strange expressions on their faces. Some of the more timid ones even lowered their heads, fearing that they had heard something they shouldn't have and would be killed as soon as they left this place. Bai Zhengjian's face instantly darkened. He turned his head and glanced at Zhao Long, who was striding forward. He gritted his teeth, but for a moment he was speechless. It was not easy to adjust his state of mind and resolve the grudge between him and Yi Xian in a warm and unrestrained manner. Unexpectedly, before he could even open his mouth, Zhao Long had ruined the situation. The words just now had undoubtedly aroused old hatred in Yi Xian's heart. If he stepped forward now and spoke up, the effect would most likely be the opposite of what he had hoped for. Thinking of this, Bai Zhengjun hated Zhao Long so much that he almost hated him to death. Brother Yi, come. Let me introduce myself. This humble one is Zhao Long, the supreme commander of the Heavenly River Star Federation garrison. Seeing Bai Zhengjun standing to one side with a dark expression, deep in thought, Zhao Long laughed inwardly. However, his feet did not stop moving. He quickly walked over to Yi Xian, his face full of joy. Ayaya, Brother Yi, I actually heard some news about what happened last time. Later on, I led a fleet and rushed over, but who would have thought that we would end up empty-handed? I was still grieving these past few days, but when I saw Brother Yi soar into the sky and enter the young ranking list, I finally felt at ease. He spoke as if Yi Xian was his biological father. Just the slightest bit of danger made him lose his appetite for food and drink. Yi Xian almost vomited from hearing this. Just as Yi Xian was feeling conflicted and did not know how to feign civility with Zhao Long, the beautiful female AI robot at the window beside him unexpectedly spoke up. She actually indicated that the 3 vials of level 9 gene cultivation fluid that Yi Xian had exchanged for had been delivered. This news shocked even Yi Xian. Beside him, Zhao Long and Bai Zhengjun, who were not far away, felt their eyelids twitch when they heard this. The level 9 gene cultivation fluid was definitely a top-grade item stored in the Immortal Star Federation exchange warehouse of the Immortal Star Dynasty's imperial capital. After all, in the entire Immortal Star Dynasty, the only person who could concoct the level 9 gene cultivation fluid was only a wealthy clan on an immortal star. This kind of item was a hot commodity in the 3 imperial capitals. It was impossible for it to be stored in the Immortal Star Federation exchange warehouse of the imperial capital Heavenly Underworld Star. Therefore, under normal circumstances, when someone from one of the lower administrative planets took out 10 million Federation contribution points to exchange for this item, the normal procedure would be to first go from the imperial capital Immortal Star to the imperial capital Heavenly Underworld Star, then from the imperial capital Heavenly Underworld Star to the imperial capital Heavenly Dust Star. Finally, from the imperial capital Heavenly Dust Star to the imperial capital Heavenly River Star, the imperial capital Heavenly River Star, and finally from the imperial capital Heavenly River Star to the imperial capital Heavenly River Star. They would have to transfer 3 times in between. Even if they used a Starry Sky grade long-distance teleportation array, it would still take about a day or so. But now, from the time Yi Xian made the exchange request to the time when the 3 vials of level 9 gene cultivation fluid were delivered to the Heavenly River Star, less than an hour had passed. What did this mean? This meant that the exchange item did not have to go through a transfer between the imperial capital and the imperial capital. It was directly sent from the imperial capital Immortal Star. Although this situation was not impossible, the imperial capital Immortal Star was located in the central district of the 3rd universe. It was immeasurably far away from the Heavenly River Star, which was located at the edge of the 3rd universe. The amount of energy used to send an item directly from the imperial capital Immortal Star to the Heavenly River Star was much greater than the transfer between the various levels. It was just a Federation expert exchanging for 3 vials of gene cultivation fluid. There was obviously something fishy going on here. While they were stunned, Bai Zhengjun and Zhao Long subconsciously turned to look at each other. They exchanged a look. Suddenly, a thought flashed through their minds at the same time. Their eyes revealed a hint of shock. The ultimate trial. Ultimate, the meaning of extremity. Legend had it that among the descendants of the imperial family on the imperial capital Immortal Star, there was such an ultimate trial. Once the descendants of the imperial family who applied for the ultimate trial succeeded, they would have a great advantage in the competition for the succession of the imperial dynasty in the future. The ultimate trial would add a lot of points to them. The so-called ultimate trial pursued a kind of ultimate exploration of one's ability. The descendants of the royal family who were participating in the ultimate trial couldn't have any Dao protectors by their side.